Today we're going to talk about how to manifest using Joe Dispenza's teaching. But more importantly than that, I want to dive into the one thing that makes change hard and is preventing your manifestations coming to fruition quicker than you would like. So as we get into this, let's just kind of start from the top. In a lot of my videos, we talk about the quantum field. We talk about our access to the infinite potential, but it's time to kind of dive into those concepts deeper and really get into the nitty-gritty stuff that's actually preventing you and causing restriction and friction in your life and preventing those manifestations from coming to life. So Dr. Joe Dispenza opens up his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, by talking about the quantum you. The quantum you is where he uses science and research to change the concept of yourself, to change the view you have of yourself. Why is this important? Because back in the day, like when we used to have Newton and Descartes, those old scientists, they believed that the physical world was set in stone and it was systematic, it was mechanistic. There was actually going to be no way to change it, to see an alteration in order to create a better life for ourselves. But Einstein proved those dudes wrong. And it was with the simple equation that everyone knows, E = mc squared. And the most important conclusion that scientists came to when diving into this wisdom further was they realized that mind and matter are actually two sides of the same coin. Now let's break that down. How could mind and matter be the same? So we got mind and we got matter. Now, I'm gonna plant some seeds right now, but if you've ever heard anything about the mirror principle, I want you to look at this drawing, right? Imagine it's a mirror and that the matter reflects what the mind holds internally. But we're gonna dive into that a little further once we break down this concept. So at the core of our experience, I'll just draw a cool looking atom, even though it may not be scientifically correct. All right, here is our subatomic particle. Now, on a micro level here, we have the electron cloud. And this electron cloud is 99.999% energy. This is going to be important to understand because this is where you start to realize mind becomes matter through the laws of the quantum physics. And that's why he opens up the book with the concept, the quantum you. Now, we know on the subatomic particle level, energy exists as waves and particles simultaneously. Now, how could this be? How could the fabric of our experience be in and out of immaterial and material? That's what's so fascinating to me. That's what kind of has blown my mind time and time again. And that's where we start to realize the mind is matter, because energy is conscious. That 99.99% energy that is the fabric of our experience, it is conscious, it is aware. Just like we are consciousness, and that consciousness is energy. That's where the coin starts to flip, and you start to realize it's the same thing. Now, what they discovered was in order for the subatomic particle to go from a wave of infinite potential, meaning there's just endless possibilities of how this could collapse into the physical world, all it took was an observer. All it took was someone to look for the electron cloud in reality. Now, why is this so important? And how does this tie back to the one thing that prevents people from changing? And it prevents people from actually manifesting a better life. Now, we know that our thoughts and our emotions are energy. And Dr. Joe Dispenza put it like this. He says, imagine your thoughts are the wavelengths in which you send information into the quantum, right? We send out that intention. We send out that thought about the better life we want to have. And emotions are how we electromagnetically draw that reality back to us. And when these two wave patterns are at the same frequency, when they are of equal wavelength size, which is frequency, we impact the fabric of experience, right? We impact that energetic potential. That 99.99% energy is actually impacted by our thoughts and our emotions. The one thing that's preventing you from manifesting is your subconscious programs. Now, these subconscious programs are a layer below your conscious thought. It's 90% of your being. Now, how do we do something about this subconscious? How do we change the subconscious? Well, I've noticed a lot of people are always talking about, okay, we have to get into a meditative state. We have to change the thoughts we have. We have to change the emotions we have. But how do you actually know you're in a meditative state? And that's going to be one thing that we're going to break down. But I'm drinking coffee this video because it's in the morning and, Now, there's three things we're going to need to look at to know we've entered a meditative state where we can actually start to reprogram our subconscious mind. And what I want to touch on is how your body, your environment, and time are the three anchors and the three constructs that keep you anchored to a program. It keeps you anchored to a familiar experience. It keeps you anchored to the reality that you're actually trying to move on from. So if the outer world, right, if the environment controls what you think and feel, your patterns and your neural pathways in your brain are going to be equal to that of the environment you experience. So let's start with the environment. One more sip for good luck. Right, we're going to start with the environment because this is where everyone looks for validation. Now, stay with me here. 99.99% energy. What actually is the environment? That's 0.0001% of the spectrum of energy that we're experiencing. Which means that if you're using your environment to determine any type of validation for yourself, you are grasping for crumbs on the spectrum of our total experiment. So when we meditate, right, when we get into deep states of meditation, the goal is to have no body, no mind, no time, and no environment. This is a place where we actually start to detach from the physical things that anchor us to a low frequency experience and allow us to step in to our natural state, to step into the quantum field, to step into the infinite intelligence. Because that's what the quantum field is. It's just energetic potential and it's information being transmitted through and in and out of space and time, right? It exists outside the constructs of space and time because the physical world is only what gives us the time and the physical construct. So when we start to overcome our environment, we start to become bigger than that experience we are having. And that's the sensation you're going for. One, no longer defined by the environment. And two, you want a grander sense of self. Why do we want a grander sense of self? Because when we look at the environment and we are observing and interacting with the familiar experience, and we're allowing that circuitry and we're allowing that subconscious program to validate our experience, then we're only going to experience that equal of proportion to the environment, that of equal proportion to the physical world. But as soon as we can overcome our environment, we can overcome the old group of friends we're trying to move on from. We can overcome the partying. We can overcome that job we have we can realize that those things aren't defining us because we have a concept of the quantum you, right? The quantum self. This is what it means in spirituality when they say know thyself. Because Grant right here, even though I'm filming and I'm doing content and I'm trying to build a business, on a core foundational level, I'm so much more than that. I'm connected to life itself. That this is just merely a glimpse of the total experience that I have. And you should rest and find peace in knowing that there's a natural harmony. And that what's going on is bigger than any problem we could fixate on in our environment. And in states of meditation, but more importantly, in your walking meditations throughout life, when life throws you curveballs, when life throws you challenges, can you anchor yourself in this awareness? Because truth always remains. The chaos of life will arise and it will pass away. But you're always connected to the source. And that's how we unlock a grander sense of self. Now, we also need to move past the environment, but also past our bodily experiences, right? Because on a foundational level, that's the most immediate source of experience we have, right? So without getting too technical, your brain releases chemicals from thoughts. And when these chemicals are released, they enter hormone centers in your body, right? So different receptor centers throughout the course of your nervous system, throughout the course of your hormonal system. And when they anchor into that place, they cause a feeling. So if you have a negative thought, oh my God, I'm never gonna do that. I'm never gonna build that business. I'm never gonna get the girl. Your brain literally releases a chemical, and that chemical anchors to the hormone receptors, and you feel that. And when you feel that, it validates that experience. You're like, oh my God. But you're creating this false reality. And when you feel that, that feeling causes more negative thoughts. So this is what the subconscious program is. This is that endless cycle. And it goes on and on and on unless you can step in and do something about it. This is why we must overcome our body, because they're sensations. If you really break this down, the reason we meditate is because we want to create space in between our thought and our impulsive reaction, the reaction to that thought. If you're engaging on this cycle, that karmic loop to some degree, you are not giving space for things to arise and pass away without you resisting that, right? So another thing that's preventing your evolution and preventing your ability to reprogram your subconscious mind is resistance. I had this revelation this weekend. And it was, I actually don't need to try. I just need to stop resisting. And how? How does that make sense, Grant? Well, let's break it down. When you're resisting something, you're saying, I don't want this experience. That's cool, but the universe and the quantum field does not speak the English language. It speaks the language of energetics. Now, what are you signaling to the universe when you're resisting an experience? You're signaling a lack of alignment. You are stepping out of the harmony of the natural organizing power of the universe. And when you step out of the harmony of the natural organizing power of the universe, you're signaling misalignment. You're signaling, hey, this is an experience I don't want. almighty universe, I don't trust you. I don't have faith in you. So of course the universe is going to give you exactly what you're looking for. More experiences to validate the energetics you're putting off. When something arises that you don't want to experience, you just need to become aware of the fact that it will go away, whether you fight it or not, and that your resistance to it and the fighting is actually the thing that prolongs that cycle of arising and passing away. So let's break this down, where if you have an impulse to react to a certain thing, and without thinking, you engage in a reaction, then you are allowing this subconscious program to take over, meaning you are not allowing this space in between for you to step in and do something about the operational pattern that you're experiencing. So if you experience this impulse, like, oh my God, my girlfriend cheated on me. My girlfriend cheated on me. I'm never going to find love. Boom, you're going to have a reaction. Meaning a similar experience, a similar action, something that you do not want, you're actually going to experience more of because you are not giving time and space in between. But if you experience this impulse, and with the new awareness, right, the idea of the quantum self, the hey, I can overcome the impulses of the body, I can overcome the impulses of time, I can overcome the impulses of my environment, then we can tap into the quantum field right here. Because what is it when you do not act? When you are non-reactive and you are being, you are present. And when you are present, which is something you find in states of meditation, you are actually naturally in alignment with the universe. Like, think about it. If you have no mind, no impulse, no misalignment with the harmony that is, you are aligned with the highest frequency. You are aligned with the 99.99% energy that is the quantum field. I want you to sit on that. Think about that for a second. If in between the impulse, right, the chemicals released from a thought, you can take a deep breath and realize, hey, if I follow this rabbit hole, I'm going to engage in the actions and experiences I do not want to engage in. That's okay. But we can slow down. We can realize, hey, if I resist this impulse, if I resist this feeling, I'm only going to create more of that. I'm only going to validate it and think about how I'm having the experience I don't want to have. And when you think about the experience you don't want to have, that karmic loop and that cycle starts again. That's why we engage in patterns. We engage in subconscious patterns. Because without this awareness, awareness means conscious, you are not consciously aware of what it takes to change. And the change isn't fighting, it's letting it be. It's coming back into alignment, evolving your concept of self. And when you do that, you can truly unlock the ability to manifest. Because you are no longer fighting something, you are no longer resisting something, you are actually aligning with the frequency you want to experience. So the more consistently you do that, the more consistently you're going to have that experience into your life. I had to learn this the tough way because I was $80,000 in debt. I was addicted to smoking weed. My girlfriend cheated on me. Like, when I tell you I was in a living state of hell, I was in a living state of hell. But the more I resisted that, I would just experience the karmic loop every day. The more I would judge myself every day for being in debt, for not doing more business to come out of that debt, for eating like shit, not taking care of myself in the gym, I would numb my pain at night by smoking. And when I would smoke, I'd be like, oh my God, why are you doing this? You need to stop this. You know what it takes to change. And I'd have those thoughts that validate those feelings. Until I created space in between the impulse and the reaction. And I came to the moment and said, hey, everything about yesterday is an impulse. It's a figment of my imagination. And everything about tomorrow is anxiety. It's a worry I don't have to deal with yet. And when I truly understood this concept, I could be present. And in the present, I could create that change. I could create new actions, new neural pathways. You know what? I'm gonna do 15 minutes on the Stairmaster. You know what? I'm not gonna eat Taco Bell. You know what? I'm not gonna smoke that weed. Then I was having a new experience. This is something that Joe Dispenza says that I like a lot. So, we all have goals. We all have dreams. Here's the current version of you, the current plus past as you look to evolve. And here's the future version of you. Now, what Joe Dispenza says is, how can you expect to create a new experience with a familiar understanding? He says that manifestation is supposed to take place in an exciting manner. You're supposed to be comfortable with the unknown. You're not supposed to know how it's going to unfold, know how it's going to manifest. Because you only have past experience. How is something of your past going to create a future experience if it's actually the thing you want to avoid? But over here, all you can do is align with the new frequency of the future. And aligning with this new frequency of the future is actually just stepping out of the resistance, right? Because this version of you that exists in the past is resisting the things that you don't want, right? Oh my God, I shouldn't smoke weed, but I'm still gonna do it. You know what, just take that first break. You're all good. Then you're starting to change your frequency. You're starting to exist in a future reality. When you can channel that frequency long enough, the physical world starts to represent this. And when the physical world starts to represent this, this identity of the past will fade away. So just remember that you cannot have a new experience by thinking you know how it's going to unfold, which is where faith steps in. Faith is room for this new environment to unfold. Now, we've talked about overcoming the environment. We've talked about overcoming the body. But now, let's talk about overcoming time. Oh, marker on the carpet, marker on the carpet. Time is a man-made construct. Now, how could time be man-made? You're like, Grant, the universe has progressed at all this place. What do you mean time is a man-made construct? The core understanding of this concept is that we exist in the eternal now. That the quantum field, that infinite energy I talk about, is actually all that we have. But the issue with humans is that we live in a state of fearing past repetition or anticipation of a future that we don't know is going to unfold. And if you really look at this, if you're living in either state, you're never truly living in the present. And the present is actually where you have access to all the energy. That 99.9% potential we talk about only exists in the present. Because this is a fake reality, and your anticipation of the future is a fake reality. So it's actually about learning to come back to the present, which is why meditation is so important, which is why overcoming your concepts of your body and your environment is so important. Because you'll slowly start to realize, like, oh my God, I'm creating these false realities for myself. I'm actually the thing causing all the chaos that I want to run away from. Now, research shows that we can biologically change our brain and experience through aligning with the future that doesn't exist yet. But if we're repeatedly visiting past memories or visiting anxieties of a future, we're not going to truly be able to do that because there's going to be that resistance. The thoughts and emotions are not going to resonate at the same frequency. And we use our attention to focus on the things we want versus the things we don't want. That's another thing that prevents the manifestations from coming to life, is focusing on what we don't want. When you focus on what you don't want, you create that resistance, you create that polarization. So the universe is just going to bring more of that back to you because you're saying, I don't want that, I'm trying to avoid it. And the universe is like, here, take it. That's the polarization. That's how the universe and energy meet in the middle. Now, this is why the eventual goal is to get to a place of no thing. You have to want nothing and you will have everything. This is where that paradox comes back in. And as soon as you can start to grasp these concepts, they're not that complex. You just got to let your ego subside. How is it that I can want no thing and have everything? In order to understand the concept of wanting nothing, we're going to have to break down the word no thing. So what Dr. Joe Dispenza introduces us to through talking about the concept of the quantum you is that because, coming full circle now, guys, because beyond the atom and on that subatomic particle level at the electron cloud, this exists as 99.999% potential. The fabric of our experience doesn't even exist in the physical world yet. It doesn't exist in the material world yet. So we are actually 99.9999% no thing until observed. Which means it's our natural state. This is where I'm telling you it's about the death of resistance, about the death of the fighting, about the not creating polarization about what you don't want, but focusing on what you do want. And as soon as we align with this no thing and we align with the frequency of the quantum field of the present moment, and we exist beyond body, environment, and time, you truly resonate at this frequency. You're truly resonating at the same frequency of the quantum, the pure potentiality. And when you do this long enough, you channel more of this into your life. So wanting nothing is actually going to attract everything, because you're signaling to the universe, hey, I truly understand the concept now. I understand that I already am everything. This is where mind is matter, the two sides of the spectrum. And you have to transcend the duality. Hot and cold are not different. They're just the same spectrum of temperature. Right? So to desire is the same thing as allowing the universe to give you what's yours, except one is forced and one is rooted in power. To allow gives permission for what's yours to step in, and you don't have to fight it because you understand that the universe naturally unfolds harmoniously. And this is how you can truly manifest using Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings. So make sure to get into deep states of meditation, whether that's journaling, whether that's breathing, whether that's actually meditating, whether that's working with yourself as experiences arise in life. And remember, you understand that you are starting to change when you are no longer defining validation based on how you feel, what the external world tells you, and how much time it's going to take for these things to happen. And only then can you truly exist in the state of nothingness and attract everything to you once you collapse that reality into experience as a conscious creator. So if you like this video, drop a subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. All right, today we're going to be talking about how I used Joe Dispenza's teaching, metaphysics, and mindset to make over $1.7 million online. Now, the biggest thing I want you to take away from this video is just overall what it actually takes to manifest more wealth and abundance into your life. Because I'm sure you consume a lot of content about Joe Dispenza, metaphysics, changing your frequency, changing your identity, but I want to get into the real world applicable things that you can actually do to see more money show up into your life. Before I can do that, I want to do a quick recap of what we talked about in the first Dispenza video. And if you haven't seen that, go check it out, because it's going to be a real in-depth breakdown about the 3 things you need to overcome in order to actually step into a new identity of manifestation. Now, the biggest thing we talked about was the mirror principle, right? We talked about how the fact that mind and matter are actually one. Now, why is this so important to understand? Because this tells us that the immaterial world, our mind, is actually the thing that impacts the matter, impacts the physical world, right? So we have a causal plane and we have an effect plane. Now right here, this is going to be the one thing, the real mistake that everyone makes. Everyone is always trying to change something about the effect, right? The girl they date, the money they make, the job they have. That is the physical world. What did we talk about? The physical world is only 0.0001% of the experience, because on the basis subatomic level of the universe, everything comes down to the electron cloud, and that is 99.9% energy. This is what we talked about in that video, so go check it out. But we need to stay on the causal plane, because this is where all the shift is going to happen, right? But before we get into that, I want to actually go back to the most important point that clicked for a lot of you guys in that video. So when we were talking about meditation and we were talking about subconscious program, we were talking about how the fact that meditation is so important in order to create this gap right here. We want to create the gap between an impulse and an action, because if you do not do that, you are going to experience a reaction. This is why it's a subconscious program, right? If you have to spend money and you're struggling to experience more wealth, experience more abundance, and let's say you have a familiar experience, right? You don't have enough money to pay for X, Y, and Z. If that impulse comes up and you allow yourself to fall into that rabbit hole, you're just going to have a reaction. You're going to have a similar experience with that. Versus the biggest thing we touched on was that if you can just slow down and come into the present moment and just truly realize that it's just an impulse. It's literally just a chemical in your brain, in your body, signaling to you an energetic and emotional response, right? And that might be something that you've attached the identity of lack and scarcity to. Now, this is one of the biggest things that I do when I help the entrepreneurs and creators I work with, because you guys don't know a lot about me, but I work with some of the biggest internet creators and the biggest entrepreneurs. And the biggest thing I help them do is just reframe, shift, shatter limiting beliefs, and step into an identity that can welcome abundance. My biggest client, Megan, in a year, she made over $1.3 million. And all we had to do was change the identity she held with money and the identity she held with herself. But we are going to get into that. Let's circle back to the most important thing. Now let's kind of dive into this a little deeper. We were talking about the causal plane and we were talking about the effect plane, right? If we do not come off of the biological response of fight or flight, then we are going to stay on this infinite loop of program, and we are not going to be able to exercise our right as a conscious creator who shifts their identity to someone that welcomes wealth, that welcomes money, that welcomes success, right? Your mind only wants to accept things that protect it. That's a fight or flight mechanism. That's a survival mechanism. So if the idea of you experiencing a lot more success, right? If you're an entrepreneur that's doing well for yourself, but you really want to step into that next level, or you're someone that wants to leave your job and step into entrepreneurship, that can be scary because you're going to be stepping in to the unknown. The secret is actually going to be a spiritual practice. Business, entrepreneurship, wealth is actually a spiritual concept, and I want to break that down for you more coming up. But let's get back to cause and effect, because this is going to make a lot of sense. Now, Joe Dispenza talks about overcoming our mind, our body, and our environment, right? Because those are the three things that anchor us to a familiar experience. This is going to be a quick summary, but like I said, go check out my previous video and environment. One of these is time. Let's just go. Time. Right? Time is how quick you want something to happen, your expectation of what it's going to look like. Your body is the literal chemical response of what happens when you get thrown into familiar situations. If you want to make more money, you step into a new identity. And if you step into that new identity and you get scared and experience lack and scarcity and doubt and fear, and you step back into your old identity, then you're not going to be able to actually be the version that steps into the unknown and actually creates that wealth and success in their life. Now, the third thing is the environment, right? You have to become bigger than your environment. You need to have a grander sense of self. Because if you identify with the environment, the self is equal to the environment. So the experiencing you're having in the familiar world is going to be how you identify and how you view yourself on that spectrum. Now, there's something called the map of consciousness. And David R. Hawkins, I recommend you guys all check him out. Even though we're coattailing off of Joe Dispenza for the content, I'm going to throw you guys some alley-oops about some people that I want you to check out because they'll actually change your life. So, the map of consciousness is our frequency of emotion and the energy and awareness that we experience as humans. And the highest frequency you can experience in the universe is pure consciousness, it's the Tao, and it's authenticity. Now, I don't care how successful you are, if you're trying to step into a new identity and you're feeling that resistance, you're feeling that pull, that's because your energy is going back to something familiar, right? Your body's trying to protect itself, so it's going to this state of fight or flight, it's going into this survival mode. And when it goes into this survival mode, it's going to try and stay as you are because it's so used to being comfortable. And what Joe Dispenza says is that if you want a new experience, you have to open your arms and let go, because how could a previous identity and a previous experience ever equate or be as magical as the new experience you want to have? You could not predict the new experience based on what you've experienced because you're trying to actually overcome all the previous experiences and welcome a new one. Now we're going to get into the energetics of this, and the biggest thing I want to focus on is just going to be how we get you into the most authentic, highest frequency in the universe. And this is going to be all based on personal experience. Yes, I've read a lot of books, but I also have a lot of life experience. I built an e-commerce brand, over $500,000. We had 70,000 followers, and it was all in the mental health space. It was called Better Days, and it was all about the slogan was, "It's okay not to be okay." And it was after COVID. And I just was overcome with this spiritual experience as I was creating this brand. And I just felt a calling to serve the world. And now I want you to pay attention to that because it's not logical, right? Why would I invest my life savings, my energy, my time, and just give it to the world without anything in return? Because there's something spiritual to that. And I'm going to show you that throughout the metaphysics, the mindset, and the Joe Dispenza teachings. But we need to talk about how your frequency is what you frequently see, and how it's going to be about changing that frequency in order to step into a new version of you, right? So let's say we got a little guy right here, and and we got a little guy right here. And over here, we have the world that everyone experiences. Africa, Europe, Antarctica, North America. Now you have to understand is that the world and the reality you experience is based on the frequency you hold internally. It's all about who you become. It's a state of being that attracts all these things into your life. And this is why, with all my clients and in my own life, you have to put your spirituality, you have to put your mindset, you have to put conscious congruency first, right? You have to live in alignment. Because if you're not living in alignment, the only person you cannot lie to is yourself, right? Let's say this person right here is an influencer, right? They got hundreds of thousands of followers. They look like they got it all figured out. They're spending money on bottles every weekend. They're flexing their watches, their cars, but deep down inside, they're lonely. Deep down in their side, they're not who they were called to be. They're putting a facade because they think the world wants them to look a certain way. And they're just out of alignment. They're such a low frequency. They're in a state of guilt because they're so shameful of the activities they engage in. They experience anger and fear. That is going to be the perspective they have of the world. And because it's the internal frequency they have, that's going to be the experience they have. Because you get what you give. The only thing you can do in this life is internal work. And that internal work impacts how you show up as a parent, impacts how you show up as an entrepreneur, impacts how you show up as a partner, a friend, and it impacts how you show up for yourself. And this is why I want to iterate the importance of putting faith, putting God, putting spirituality, whatever you believe in first, because it's the thing you sit with every day. And it's how you actually reprogram your subconscious mind into alignment. Now let's talk about person 2. This person saw person 1 and was like, damn, I wish I could be on that yacht. I wish I could have those watches, have those cars, but deep down something's telling me that's not for me. It's like God was whispering in his ear, Grant, it's not about looking cool. It's not about the money. It's not about the success. There's something more to it. And that something more is living in alignment and living in regards to your highest self and your highest calling. And I'm going to show you how your purpose is actually to just be you, to actually just be authentic. Because when you truly understand your concept of self, you understand what you're called here to do. And this is going to be how we experience more material wealth and success and abundance. And now, by no means have I read the Bible as much as I should, but we're going to touch on those two things from the Bible in order to kind of nail this home and talk about how this applies to wealth and success being a spiritual concept. Now, person 2 listened to that calling and was like, I'm going to go be in alignment. I'm going to be my best self. I'm going to sit with my faith. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to overcome those negative thoughts. Any bad thing that happens to me, I'm going to rise above. I'm going to transcend because all I can do is influence my perspective and how I respond to things. That's all I can do in this life. You can't control what's thrown your way. You can control how you respond to it. And when you control the frame in which you experience things, you can frame that for more wealth and abundance. You understand that the most successful people have had gnarly things happen in their life. Businesses fail, lost millions of dollars. Myron Golden is actually the inspiration for what I'm going to talk about next. He started a 7-figure, multi-million-dollar business, lost it all, and came back even more, and now he makes $10 million a year. And he's a man of Christ, or not even a religious man. He's just a man of God. He's a man of the principles talked about in the Bible. And that's what I want to talk about next, because funny enough, I don't think any of the religions were supposed to be set as law. I think they were supposed to be set as principles on how to awaken our higher selves and live in accordance with our calling. Now, this is the biggest thing I want you to take away. It's all about changing your frequency. And now let's break down frequency. Your frequency is what you frequently see. What you frequently see is not a physical experience because that's only 0.0001% of the spectrum of energy. The spectrum of energy is actually the spectrum of consciousness, the emotion, the energy in motion, which is the 99.999% energy. So it's actually about keeping yourself in alignment with the reality you want to experience, which is why it comes back to the mirror principle, right? You shift the internal world and the external world has no choice but to reflect that. So what are some traits of abundance and wealth and success that attract more money into our lives, right? Money is an effect. It's not a cause. And that's the biggest thing. So we're going to talk about those two principles. And please educate me in my storytelling about the biblical principles. But this is all just consuming it through a third party. So the first thing we're going to talk about is King Solomon. And then we're going to talk about why God said, be fruitful and multiply. So King Solomon was someone that sacrificed everything about the material world. He came to God with tens of thousands of sacrifices, right? Now, he didn't actually sacrifice things, but he said, God, take this from me. Take my worries about my wisdom, take my worries about the women, take my worries about the wealth. I'm in pure devotion to you. I'm in pure devotion to the most authentic frequency in the universe. Now, what is God? God is the thing that connects us all. It's the energy that courses through us. It's the 99.99% infinite potential. This is what Dispenza talks about. The electron cloud is pure infinite potential. And this electron cloud, this energy, is conscious. The energy that makes up everything is actually no thing, right? We talked about this in the last video. The wave particle is back and forth with an observer. So energy is only collapsed in reality when there's someone to observe the reality we want to experience. So if you want to experience more wealth, if you want to experience more success of the highest degree, you have to align with the highest frequency. The highest frequency is the Tao, the effortless nature of the universe. Think about it. What is the effortless nature of the universe? The effortless nature of the universe is the love that has enough abundance to make sure that the sun is always shining. It's the love that made sure plants turn carbon dioxide into oxygen for us. It's the love, the energy, the just pure presence that made sure we have this material world to experience, that sacrificed itself to be the backbone of the experience. Don't you see this? The pure energy is actually everywhere all the time. We just can't see it because it's at the backbone of the material experience. That is pure sacrifice. That is why Jesus Christ was put on a cross and crucified. That is why King Solomon sacrificed everything and gave it all up to God. Because it's actually about discarding the things that we don't want to experience. I don't want to experience scarcity. I don't want to experience worry. I don't want to experience fear. I don't want to experience guilt. God, I give that all to you. Now, the science and metaphysics behind that is that we are actually observing what we want to experience. So if you spend your time in devotion to the highest frequency, like King Solomon, in the story, God comes to him one night and says, Solomon, I will give you whatever you wish. Now, what did King Solomon wish for? He wished for wisdom. And this wisdom brought all the riches because he was wise enough to lead the kings, to lead men. And it was all because of his alignment in totality with God, or the Tao, or the highest frequency of authenticity. Now, let's talk about that frequency, because what is the highest frequency? The highest frequency is service, or selflessness. It's selfless. Service is selfless. Think about it. If everything's on a spectrum, right? If hot and cold are just the spectrum of temperature, if our identity is a spectrum of self and no self, the selfless, the connection to the all, the connection to totality, or the wave and the particle are just spectrums of the experience on different sides, the most scarce thing you can do is be worried about yourself and be worried about your problems. You have to expand your concept of self. Expanding our concept of self is what Dispenza talked about. We overcome the familiar environment, the familiar body, the familiar time by expanding our concept of self. And we are actually expanding our concept of self into selflessness, saying, hey, I'm willing to put you before me. I'm willing to serve you. because you get what you give. That's the hack. That's the metaphysical hack. If you are living in alignment with that pure Tao, you're going to get that abundance in return because you've bridged the gap. In the first video, we talked about how no thing is actually everything. The 99.99% energy that is no thing is actually the backbound of the 0.00001% that is everything. So if you want everything, you have to be no thing. You have to be selfless enough to give your service to the world. When I started my e-commerce business, it was all about being of service to the world. Then I went $80,000 in debt because I wanted to look cool. I wanted to look like I had it all figured out. The tens of thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh my God, look at me, I'm Grant. No, no, that is not what you want. I lost it all. I lost everything. That was the starting of my spiritual awakening, because that's not what it's about. It's about this right here, this connection. I have nothing to gain by giving you this information except wearing my heart on my sleeves, living my truth, living my authenticity, and telling you what I figured out. The wise dome. It's all about being selfless, and that's where all the wealth is going to come from. Because if you can serve someone of the highest degree, that's what you're going to get paid for. When I went $80,000 in debt, I started to consult content creators because I knew they had a lot of followers, but they weren't making enough money. I came to them and said, hey, I will provide this solution. You don't got to pay me much, but I just want a percentage of the value I can provide to you. I was a partner on a 7-figure plus venture, and I got paid out a percentage of that. But I did it selflessly. I put them before me. I put my service to them before myself, before my worries. On the days I woke up and didn't know if I would have it in me, I gave that to God and said, hey, we're going to figure it out regardless. It was all about my perspective. Now, let's talk about the second thing. We talked about King Solomon sacrificing our worries, sacrificing our fears, sacrificing our identity we don't want to experience. And if you choose to live in alignment with God, He will bestow upon you all the wealth, riches of the kingdom. But the King Solomon fatal tale is, as soon as you start to identify with the effect, you start to identify with the wealth, the women, the clout, which is what I did. You don't have it figured out, because it's actually your devotion to the highest calling, to the highest frequency, to the highest version of yourself. When people talk about your highest self, you are created in the image of God. You are the 99.999% energy that comes from the quantum field of infinite potential. Do you see how that religion and Joe Dispenza talk about the same thing? And that if you live with an open heart and an open mind, you can start to connect more dots. You can see that they're all talking about the same thing, and that in all the same things, there's principles. Now, let's talk about be fruitful. And multiply. Now we have to look at God's creation to truly understand this. What does He mean when He says, I want you to be fruitful and multiply? This blew my mind when Myron Golden talked about this. Nature is reproductive in itself. It has enough abundance to provide. It is not scarce, which is what the human ego has started to chase, started to pursue, be like, I need. Let's think about a single apple. If I eat an apple, I'm out in nature. I'm out camping with my friends. I got an apple. It's delicious. And that apple, when it comes to the end of its life, thank you for nourishing me, but it only has 5 seeds. And I throw the apple into nature. Those 5 seeds are not going to come back as 5 apples. They're going to come back as 5 apple trees. Be fruitful and multiply. Now let's look at what it says in the Bible. Man was created in the image of God, which means that God planted a seed within us that we need to bring to this world. You've all felt the calling. You'd be lying to me if you said you hadn't. If you're an entrepreneur, you've sure as hell felt the calling. But you may have been just caught up in the material world. You may have been just caught up in the plane of effect. Because the plane of effect is the world of illusion, right? You ever seen that prism where the white light goes through it and turns to the rainbow? The white light is the quantum field, the infinite potential, God, and the material world is the rainbow. But it's the same thing. What you align with gives you clarity. Because if you align with the material world, you're going to align with the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, all the chaos, all the nonsense, which is actually what we need to step back, step away from, which is why meditation is so important, right? Our attachment to the rainbow, our attachment to the physical things that we're chasing and latching onto is impulsive. If we can step out of that, take a deep breath, and realize that we're here to give and we're here to serve, that's where all the money comes from. And it's all energetics. Why do you think I'm talking about this and not some, oh, just post on YouTube and book more calls and maybe you'll close a deal if you pitch an offer properly? No, because that's not the thing that creates everlasting wealth and everlasting abundance. You'll be rich in ways you can't even experience. The Joe Dispenza video I just made warmed my heart in so many ways. Because I felt like the richest man alive to see people saying, you solved my problem. He didn't have to pay me for that. I just wanted to do it because I knew it was the right thing. I knew giving you guys this information is the right thing. And I know that when it's time for me to open up my doors of service some more and tell you, if you want me to help you break through the limiting beliefs and start to channel your highest self and live in ultimate alignment with your calling, which bridges passion, purpose, and profit, the people that have heard my message and have heard my calling and see the value I can provide are going to come. They're going to come line up. And I'm going to say, this is what it costs to work with me because my time is finite here. And this is what I see it being worth. And if that's something you align with, let's go work together because I'm all about collaboration. I'm all about a win-win. And if people don't align with that, that's fine. That's abundance. I have no need. Just active service. Now we're going to be breaking down this series some more because I'm going to start bridging this gap for you. I'm going to start showing you how the metaphysical, spiritual, and religious principles are actually about awakening your greatness, awakening your calling, awakening your infinite potential to serve the world, to step into your highest self, to impact people's lives and to be fruitful and multiply, to take what has God planted within you and bring it to the world and spread and multiply. So if you like this video, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, do I have a crazy one for you today. Now we are going to be talking about how to reprogram your subconscious mind and experience its true power, your power as a creator. And by the end of this video, you are going to have 6 steps to brainwash the hidden command center of reality for effortless success and abundance. But before I get into the first 6 steps that you actually need to reprogram your subconscious mind, I need to introduce you to a few just super short, super simple concepts that is going to truly educate you on the power of your subconscious mind and how it influences your reality as the hidden command center. Now, before I get into the topics, if you go click the first link in the description, you're going to have access to the workbook for this video. I put together an entire document that's going to have all of this information. It's like a note sheet that you can use to follow along. Now, I also want to highlight the fact that I'm becoming a full-time streamer. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you could come join me in a live environment and we can chat. But now let's get into the actual super simple key pieces of information you need to understand the subconscious mind. Right? Why is it so important to understand the subconscious mind if we're trying to manifest more for ourselves, if we're trying to experience a new reality? Because whether you realize it or not, the subconscious mind automates and controls 95% of your thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Now, I'm sure you guys have tried to, sit down and intentionally create change in your life, but it just feels like you're hitting this invisible ceiling. And that's because you are. Because the conscious mind actually only has access to 5%. The unconscious mind controls 95% of the experience you have daily. And it does this by feeding you programmed thoughts, which lead to pre-programmed beliefs, which lead to pre-programmed actions. Now, what's so important about this? What's so important is that the subconscious and what you do daily is dictated by the conditioning of the subconscious, not the conscious decision making. Now, I want you to think of some super simple things. Do you have to think about breathing? No. Do you have to think about walking? No. Do you have to think about swallowing? Not at all. Now, what if I told you that you have deeply ingrained energetic programs, and when they are triggered, you are going to experience the same familiar reality you no longer want to experience? Now, that's the first piece of information that I want you to internalize. And if you're following along in the workbook, highlight and take notes, because that's one of the most important things to understand. Now, the second thing I want to touch on is how we actually get the subconscious mind to respond, right? Because it does not respond to our willpower. It does not respond to our conscious thought, our conscious intention. It doesn't respond to will, right? Have you ever tried to force change, to will something in existence, but it just doesn't seem to work? That's because the subconscious mind responds to repetitions. So it only responds to repetition. Now, this is important. We're covering all the 5 key things you need to understand about the subconscious so you can truly reprogram that hidden command center that's controlling your reality. Now, once again, it does not respond to willpower. It does not respond to your willpower. So we want to impress the subconscious mind through repetition, emotion, and identity level shifts. Now, what can we do to actually create identity level shifts? Because yes, you can change your reality with your thoughts and emotions and channeling a new frequency, but this is why affirmations, visualizations, and my personal favorite, habits, are the things that you actually use to reprogram the subconscious to accept new beliefs as a reality, right? Why is it that affirmations, visualizations, and our habits are actually the things that reprogram the subconscious mind through repetition so we can experience a new reality? And that's because the subconscious is the thing that controls your perception of your reality. So let's move on to the next point. Your subconscious controls your perception of reality. And it does this through a filtered belief system. Let's think about it. We got a big word, perception. But what is it? It's really just filtered belief. Now, if you've programmed your subconscious mind to have a certain type of experience time and time again, and you've been unconscious that you've been programming that through your thoughts and emotions and actions like we talk about, you are going to have a certain type of filter. I want you to think about it as you've created this frame, this tunnel vision for how you view the world. Have you ever seen me draw the image of the 2 people looking at the globe? Because it's your frequency is what you will frequently see in reality. And I'm going to start to kind of tie these things together. But the most important thing you need to understand is that if you think you're unlucky, if you actually believe you're unlucky, you're going to attract more of that into your life because you're putting your focus on it. Where your attention goes, energy flows. And if your subconscious mind has been programmed for years on end to think you're unlucky, to think you're scarce, to think you're not worthy, no wonder your perception is filtering reality to experience that belief more. If you believe you're powerful, reality is going to reflect that to you. But why? But why is it actually going to be the thing that reflects it to you? Because if you think you're unlucky, you're going to have an external frame of validation, right? You're going to blame things on the external world. Oh, these things just happen to me because I'm unlucky. All those things, it's just what I attract. It's just what I attract. Versus someone powerful, rooted in this type of understanding, knows that life is going to naturally have its ebb and flows, right? There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. But a powerful person has resilience, and a powerful person has a strong mindset. That's why your mindset and your spirituality is so important, because you're always programming your subconscious mind. Everything you do programs your subconscious mind through repetition, right? The affirmations. What are you affirming about yourself? It's not what you just say in the mirror for 5 minutes. It's what you say that other 95% of the time. Are you catching your subconscious thoughts that are triggered, right? This is why meditation is important, because when those things are triggered, are you going to go down the rabbit hole? Or are you going to feed them? Or are you going to stop and be like, whoa, Grant, you're not that. I may have had a thought that I was unlucky, but I'm not going to focus on it and allow it to grow more. I'm powerful. That's where you can use your conscious attention in the moment to reshift it. And that act alone is something that reprograms your subconscious mind. Now, let's move on to the next concept. We're almost to the end, and we're going to get to the 6 steps that you can actually use to reprogram in everyday life, because I'm going to give you practical insights and information to do so. So, the subconscious mind is timeless. And it actually accepts everything as literally. Right? What do I mean by that? So the subconscious mind is timeless. And literal. The subconscious mind does not understand the English language. It's programmed through energy. Right, we have thought, and we have emotion, which is both energy. Humans are the only ones that place labels upon things using the English language, right? We have the certain emotional frequency. We have the certain frequency of the thought. Now, this is why the subconscious is non-linear, because the energy you're programming it with at all times is taking that energy on literally. Whatever you're actually feeling and thinking, regardless of how you want it to go down, is going to happen in the resonant frequency that it's occurring at. That's why it's all about energy. That's why it's all about frequency. That's why Dr. David R. Hopkins' map of consciousness is so powerful. But now let's get into the timeless nature of it, because now you're going to understand why visualization and our ability to meditate and enter a timeless state is so important. Because the subconscious mind cannot tell what's real and what's fake. Now, Joe Dispenza talks about this study, right? They split a basketball team into 3 different groups. Now, the first group went into practice for 15 minutes a day and shot free throws. The second group didn't go into the gym at all and only visualized shooting free throws. But the third group went in 15 minutes a day to practice and spent 15 minutes visualizing it. And I'm sure you can guess which one had the greatest impact. No, it's not just the visualization one. The visualization one actually improved the same percentage as the people that went into practice. But the people that actually showed up to practice and actually spent the time to visualize had 2-3 times the amount of growth and success than the people that only engaged in one. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because you may be consuming really good content for yourself. You might be using the workbook and spending time consuming the proper information. Shit, you might even spend time meditating and actually affirming things and visualizing things. But that's just half the battle. The other half of the battle is actually showing up and doing the things that you want to see happen. That's the secret. If you want your manifestations to come to life, you can do it in a lot quicker of a manner. And that's through actually bringing real-world implementation to match the visualization. Because the visualization teaches you how you're going to show up in the real world. Think about it. If I'm driving on the road and someone cuts me off, but I've been spending a lot of time getting present and meditating and realizing like, hey, I'm not going to let these external things influence me, and that happens, I could initially feel that emotion and that shock and that scare and be like, oh my God. But then be like, Grant, you've been practicing for this. We actually meditated and visualized on this. That person's just probably in a rush. They got somewhere to be. Who knows? Their wife could be in labor, right? That's the powerful individual that has programmed their subconscious mind for the positive experience. Now, let's get on to the 5th thing, because the subconscious does something that I'm sure a decent amount of you have experienced, and some of you might not even be aware of it. So, the subconscious mind actually deeply ingrains emotions. And if they're deeply ingrained negative emotions, that's trauma. So if you have trauma, that's because it's in the subconscious. Think about it. We know that the subconscious doesn't differ between what's real and what's fake. So something happened to me when I was 7 years old that was so traumatic. It was so traumatic that every time I get triggered, whether that's a thought or an emotion, right? It can be both thoughts and emotions that cause us to feel things, but the thoughts and emotions create this cycle. It's the cycle of energetic programming. And that's the thing that the subconscious is feeding, or feeding off of, right? But if you just realize that it's emotion ingrained in our body and our mind, that it's not actually what we're experiencing, it's just what we're conditioned to experience, you will actually be able to see the healing and transformation journey begin. And it's when you rewrite these imprints, right? We can have certain thoughts and emotions. At some point, they could just be negative, right? But what if we started to rewrite it in a positive manner? If we said, hey, we're no longer going to allow those emotions to dictate those thoughts. And every time we do experience that, we're going to transmutate it into something positive. You can start to rewrite and imprint the subconscious on a positive level. That's the secret, is that in the present moment, nothing is set in stone. Nothing is set in stone, and that's magical. So let's get into the sixth point and final point before we get into the things that you can actually do to reprogram your subconscious mind. So we know that the subconscious mind is actually tapped into the quantum. And that Carl Jung talks about something called the collective unconscious. Now, this is where all the mystical experiences are starting to happen. Have you ever thought about someone and they text you? Or have you experienced synchronicities and alignments that were like, whoa, reality's talking back to me type of thing? That's because your subconscious mind on a deep energetic level is connected to the quantum field. And the subconscious isn't just personal. It's not just personal experiences. This is why they talk about we have family traumas we need to overcome that are passed down, because it's energetic. It's passed down through our genes, the epigenetics. And that is our job to consciously overcome it and rewrite it in this moment. And through that repetition of thoughts, emotions, affirmations, visualizations, habits, actions, we actually rewrite the subconscious programming. And when we rewrite the subconscious programming, we can experience a new reality. Now, let's talk about how you can actually tap into that command center and actually reprogram your reality to be whatever you want it to be. So the first thing that you need to understand when it comes down to reprogramming the command center, reprogramming the subconscious, is going to be the first thing of repetition and immersion. And that's going to be, how can you feed your subconscious aligned thoughts, affirmations, and inputs daily? Repetition and immersion. How can you immerse yourself in a new experience? Now, there's a variety of ways to do this, right? This is what happens when we meditate. This is what happens when we visualize. This is what happens when we journal. But like I said in that basketball metaphor, this is only 50% of the repetition. How do we immerse ourselves in that change? We do this through habits. With discipline, we actually can change what we want to experience. We do this through action. And if you do this long enough, the subconscious mind will have a new layer of belief. Every time I don't feel like doing something, I think about it like a video game. I'm like, okay, I can use this tool. I can use this tool to get to this belief that will create this new reality for me, right? But that might take me a while. If I really want it to happen quick, why don't I add this third tool, this fourth tool, and this fifth tool that allows me to unlock 100% of the repetition and immersion? Because then I will program the belief into the subconscious quicker, which will allow reality to shift quicker, right? The more you do it, the quicker your subconscious is going to be programmed to look for that experience in your life. So why just meditate 5 minutes a day? When you can visualize for 15, you can journal for 15, you can engage in the habits for 2 hours, and you can take action on it for 2 hours. Think about it. We just went from 5 minutes to 4 hours and 35 minutes of reprogramming the subconscious mind. But that's the secret, is that the reprogramming doesn't just have to happen in these environments. It happens in everything you do. So once you treat it like a video game and you realize, oh my God, everything I do that's different in a familiar or not a non-familiar experience, and I'm changing the experience I do want to have, I'm creating a new reality for myself. And when you create a new reality for yourself, this is where you're going to have a deep, energetic, and emotional experience. This is where you're going to feel something new. This is what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. That's the second thing that'll reprogram your subconscious mind, right? These elevated states. In my own personal life, the elevated states come through action, right? Because if people have a tough time visualizing or a tough time meditating, and they're in their conscious mind, right? So if you're too in your head, you're not going to let it flow. You're not going to let that change to happen. And if you're just beginning, I've learned that one of the quickest ways to have a new experience is through action. They're actually doing the thing. Let me use a metaphor of my life today, right? So I want to get in great shape. How am I going to get in great shape? Do things that I don't want to do. This morning I woke up and I ran 10 miles. When I got out of bed, I felt tired. That was an emotion, right? I was tired. So my alarm went off at 7:20 and I laid in bed for 10 more minutes. And in bed, I'm like, Grant, maybe you just run 6 miles today. Maybe you just run 6 miles today. That was a thought. And those things started to create more emotions and thoughts. But then I just came back to the present moment. I'm like, Grant, you know what? Just slow down. What do we do in this present moment? We haven't started running 10 miles yet, but what can we do? You know, we can get out of bed. So I got out. I can stretch. I can get some water. These are all things channeling a new experience saying, hey, Grant, you're pretty much running 10 miles. You're just doing different things that aren't just the 10 miles yet. But on a deeper level, if I do want to have a new reality and a new experience of being in great shape, what's going to allow me to experience that elevated emotion in everything I do? I start to check the boxes. I start to stack small wins and I start to feel aligned with the reality of me being in shape. Now I'm here filming this video for you, and guess what? I ran the 10 miles and I got crazy endorphins after that. Crazy endorphins, which put me in an elevated state, and I did it through action, but I did it through small micro actions. And yes, Dr. Joe Dispenza does talk about how you can skip the doing part, right? You can go from thinking to being. But in that basketball study, he talks about that the real exponential change happens is when you stack action with that visualization and belief. That's where the real sauce happens. Now, the third thing I want to touch on is going to be cool. This is what a lot of other gurus and esoteric figures and coaches talk about, and it's going to be identity shifting. Because identity shifting is a state of being. Identity is being, right? On a core fundamental level, how do we change our state of being? You have to become the version of you who already has it. So let's say at some point people want to experience more financial abundance, right? How do we feel the things that are aligned with financial abundance? I could sit around waiting for money, maybe thinking that eventually someone will just show up on my door with $1 million. But the odds of that happening, you got to be like an insane guru and manifestor to make that happen. But how do I experience financial abundance? I can give to others. I can work on my business. I can tip the waiter. Now, this is the secret. This is how you shift into a state of being that attracts everything. Look at all these things that actually have nothing to do with the dollar, that actually signify that you are that person. This is, like I was saying, stack small actions that attract this reality and this outcome. That's the secret. And that's how your identity, how you identify yourself, is going to be through the small things that you don't even know you were making identifications upon. And then eventually you're just going to change your state of being. All right, I'm going to combine two of the steps into one. So I'm flipping around the order a little bit, but I think it's going to be able to provide you a lot of value. Now, I want you to drop a comment in the chat if you're starting to understand how powerful your subconscious mind actually is. And I want you to let me know if you actually understand and have started to pick up on the things of how this hidden command center might have actually been controlling your reality. I'd love to see your engagement. So let's combine two of them, right? So everyone talks about meditation. What does meditation give us? Presence, and it gives us stillness. Now, what's the concept we're going to stitch this together with? Visualization. So we know that the subconscious mind doesn't know it's real or not, right? Because thought is the most powerful thing in the universe. This is the law of mentalism, right? This is what we talked about on the stream last night. This is the first universal law from the Kabbalion, and that's mentalism. That thought precedes everything. This whiteboard was a thought before someone created it, right? So on a bigger, grander level, if we look at things and entire identity shifts that manifest in life, it starts with the thought, which is a visualization that we could be experiencing something new. Now, how do we get to a place where the visualizations are strong, right? Because if that subconscious voice and that subconscious programming is in your ear and it's not allowing you to kind of actually allow yourself to change your reality, you're like, oh my God, those negative thoughts, those negative emotions are just fighting back. What do we actually need to do? We need to meditate. And I talk about this a lot in the videos. Because when you meditate, you create a gap and this gap is the distance between an impulse, right, our thoughts and our emotions, the reprogramming, the subconscious mind, and eventually stepping into a reaction. This reaction is just going to signify the same reality and the familiar experience we want to avoid. So if we practice presence and we practice stillness and we start to meditate, we're going to create this gap right here. And this gap is stillness, right? This is the quantum. That's what Joe Dispenza talks about, the 99.9% energy, that's infinite potential. And if that energy is conscious, right? We know that thought is just an energetic field programmed with information, which is the law of mentalism. That in that moment, we can use our thoughts to visualize a new reality for ourselves. And the more that we practice presence and stillness and meditate, the less we're going to have this impulse in our way, causing us to experience a reaction where I'm like, oh my God, meditation is hard. There's that voice in my head. Well, if you meditate and you just be, and that voice starts to get quieter and quieter through repetition, through practice, through action, then you're going to experience a new reality. Now, let's move on to the final step, and that is going to be step 6. This is going to be the final thing you need to reprogram your subconscious mind and experience your power as a creator. And that is going to be the most important step of all. I saw comments about my erasing. They're like, start an ASMR channel about just your erasing. I was like, okay, sure. That 6th step, the most important one, is going to be understanding contradiction. I've experienced this in my own life, and it was the one thing keeping me paralyzed. Now I want you to think about all the ways you have goals and visualizations and dreams for yourself that are contradicted through your actions, words, and subconscious programs. Because the one thing we're after is congruency. But this congruency needs to be conscious. And the only way we can make conscious decisions is in this moment. When we realize that the subconscious does exist, we can change the inputs of our thoughts, of our emotions. And when we start to change these inputs and we experience repetition, this repetition creates a new cycle in our life. And this cycle, if engaged with long enough, is going to create congruency, and we're going to overcome the contradiction and misalignment between our thoughts, actions, behaviors, and emotions that we're creating a familiar experience we want to avoid. And by changing these things, putting ourselves on a new cycle of repetition, we start to experience conscious congruency. We're reprogramming our subconscious mind to be the command center that serves the reality we want to experience. Your subconscious mind is a direct link to effortless manifestation, transformation, and personal mastery. Mastering it means you create your reality instead of being a product of conditioning. Now, I wanted to throw this video together for you because it's one of the most powerful concepts that you can actually understand about your own state of being. And that there's no reason to judge yourself for the things that happen. You just realize that there's this hidden command center in the background running the software of the hardware of the body. And once you start to change that and program your mind with this information, you can create a new reality for yourself. Drop a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. So I've got one goal for us today. And I want to show you how I used 2 of these proven neuroscience secrets to manifest over $51,000 in a single day. But the most important thing I want to give you, and the most important thing you need to take from this, is going to be understanding why financial success is not sustainable. And it comes down to one single thing. And it comes down to why my first 2 business ventures, one failed and I went $80,000 in debt. The other I did over 7 figures in, but it wasn't sustainable. So the biggest thing I want you to take away is how we actually unlock sustainable success using high-level mindset, high-level spirituality. But before I want to get into that, I want to tell you how one of my clients named Megan used these exact principles and scaled her business to over $1 million in a single year. She went from working a 9-to-5, then started making $40K a month. Then she was doing over $45,000 in 90 minutes. So if you want a similar transformation and you want me to help you apply these principles into your own business, I never do this. I have nothing to sell. This is merely just an offering. I'm gonna be opening up my consulting business to 1, maybe 2 people, and it's gonna be an arduous application process. So if that sounds like you and you wanna see these type of results in your life, click the first link in bio. Now, let's get straight into it. The one thing that is going to be preventing you from sustainable success is going to be living from a place of object referral. We're gonna be stitching together a lot of teachings, right? I like to talk about Joe Dispenza. Object referral comes from someone named Deepak Chopra. Object referral is the idea that we live in reference to the external world, right? We derive our validation, we derive our definition of success, we derive everything about our experience and we justify it based on the external experience. But here's how I want to tie in the Joe Dispenza teachings, because object referral goes against what Joe Dispenza says about overcoming our body, our time, and our environment. Because these are the 3 things that you need to overcome if you want to transform your life and actually begin to manifest. And if you want to learn more about overcoming your body, time, and environment, go check out the video. I use these 3 principles from Joe Dispenza to manifest $1 million. Now, another thing that object referral kind of relies on is the fact that we don't understand quantum physics to its core. Right? Because if everything is 99.9% energy, we're deriving value based on 0.001% of the experience. That means that the object, right, the success, the people in your life, the car you drive, the house you have, really only makes up 0.001% of that experience. And that's why you're not going to have sustainable success. Because as soon as you start living for an outcome, right? When I ran my e-commerce business, we did over $500,000 in a few months, and it was crazy. And I felt on top of the world, had 70,000 followers, was making $4,000 a day, had everyone coming out the seams in San Diego to show me love, right? I felt like I was on top of the world, but as soon as I got to that mountain peak because I thought it was what I wanted, I self-sabotaged. Why did I self-sabotage? Because as soon as I got the thing that I was living for the outcome, I was living for the object referral, I hit the ceiling and was like, oh my God, why don't I feel like this is the success I was after? And then I self-sabotaged. I went $80,000 in debt, started smoking way too much weed. I got cheated on. I literally fell into a victim mindset and started channeling all these negative experiences for myself. I wanted to open up the video talking about this because that's why I, along with other entrepreneurs and just people in general, sometimes struggle to have sustainable success because we are living for an outcome. When we are living for an outcome, we signaled the fact that we don't actually understand what's going on, right? Joe Dispenza talks about how Descartes and Newton were wrong because they thought that the world came together in a kind of cause and effect manner, right? A plus B equals C, which means D plus E equals F, right? It comes in like an ABC type manner and it rolls out in that way. No, it actually comes down to a quantum type experience and a quantum type level of knowledge. And that our energy we hold internally is the thing that impacts the entire reality, because that's the 99.99% energy. This is something called self-referral. Oh yeah, look at that. Self-referral. Bear with me with the terrible handwriting right there. Self-referral means we live from an internal realization of truth. We live from an internal alignment with something we understand about the world. Now, I'm going to tell you how you can use self-referral to tap into the universal intelligence, to tap into the quantum field, to make over $51,000 in a single day. And if you don't believe me, because I got some comments saying, you're just using the number as clickbait, I'm going to put up some screenshots. 51K in a day. I did $45,000 in 90 minutes, $36,000 in 90 minutes. The proof is in the pudding. But there's a reason that I don't come on here and talk about business strategy. I don't come on here and talk about how to go viral, how to build a funnel, how to launch an offer, because that is not the value. If you've had any level of success, you know that the thing that got you there was the mindset, the internal place of self-referral and realization, right? It was a type of self-accountability, a type of self-responsibility to have those outcomes. And if you've watched the dollar sign go from a top and slowly start to peak and drop, that's because you started to enjoy yourself and you started to change the inputs that got you to the top, right? When you're going on that vacation in Europe, when you're popping the bottles, when you're buying the expensive watches, you're not living in alignment. You're not putting in the inputs and allowing yourself to embody that truth that got you to this level of success. So now it's time for me to transition into the 2 neuroscience secrets that actually allow me to see this type of financial transformation in my business and my life, right? I learned quickly that if I try and put on a facade, be someone I'm not, cheat my way to the top, then I'm never going to be able to attain the success I wanted to see. So the first principle I want to talk about, let's just go, all right, neuroscience secret 1. We're going to go how to tap into universal intelligence. Ain't this the $1 million question? How do we tap into the universal intelligence? Because Joe Dispenza, Taoism, any form of manifestation and any form of teacher that you learn from came to this same truth, came to this singularity in the experience. And that singularity and level of understanding is the fact that, hey, we are not this external world. We are actually the universe or God experiencing itself, right? We are the infinite consciousness, the universal intelligence, just manifested into physical form. Manifestation is not, oh my God, let me just have this happy-go-lucky thoughts and the universe might bring these things to me. No, manifestation is having an internal frame of self-realization in a form of clarity that has so much conviction. Your energy entirely shifts and sends ripples into the physical world, into the energetic field of the universal intelligence, and it will have no choice but to draw that back to you the longer you hold it with conviction. That's really what manifestation is. But that internal conviction also plays out in your actions. It also plays out in your thoughts. It also plays out in your words. It plays out in how you treat people, how you show up for the gym, the type of food you eat. That's why they say how you do one thing is how you do everything. So the one thing you actually need to shift into your business to actually attain and break through the ceilings and unlock new paradigms of financial success is hold that internal frame of self-referral, right? Once you're in alignment with your highest calling, and there is no thing in the physical world that pulls you from that, right? There is no girl or friend that's like, hey, Grant, let's go out and drink. Let's go out and eat these unhealthy foods. Grant, you don't need to work. I know you have those dreams and goals to pursue your business. As soon as you signal to the universe that this is what I want, and I'm willing to do anything to get there, it will start to show it to you. So how do we move beyond the chains of our body, of our environment, and our time, right? These are things we talked about in the other videos. To get into the universal intelligence, what we actually need to do is move beyond time and space, right? The physical construct. This is what we need to do to tap into the universal intelligence, right? To become a state of pure consciousness, we actually need to move beyond time and space, which allows us to move beyond the body, beyond the environment, and beyond the time. And just a quick little synopsis, the body are the chemical impulses, right? When you have a certain thought, you create a chemical that attaches to hormone receptors in your body, creating a feeling. And as soon as you create that feeling, if you are reactive and you react to that feeling, you're going to create another thought. It's not going to be the same exact thought, but it's going to be another negative one. It's going to be one that sends you down the rabbit hole. That's why they say, oh my God, I'm spiraling down the rabbit hole. Because your reaction is just, you're clinging on, starting to drown, and you can't come up for air. Your environment are the things we were talking about in object referral. The car you drive, the job you have, the girl you date. It could be your wife. It could be your kids. These are all things we attach our identity to. So what you actually need to do to move into universal intelligence is you need to disidentify with the body. You need to no longer be bound by the physical experience. You need to no longer identify your identity with your wife, with your kids, with the car you drive, with the amount of money you make. If you're an entrepreneur and you're stuck making money at that $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month mark, the resistance of, oh my God, I can't break through the ceiling is the thing that's keeping you there. And time is going to be the thing where when we are scarce, when we are in that place of object referral, we need it immediately. But time is a man-made construct. Have you ever been driving in your car and you just get so lost in your thought, you are no longer bound, you don't even know you have a body, you don't even know where you are, and you don't even know how long you've been driving? You've entered the quantum field, you've entered the universal intelligence, you've entered the state of pure consciousness. So what do we do when we move into that state of pure consciousness? When we move beyond time and space and we enter pure consciousness, thought is the realist thing. When you become pure consciousness and you are no longer bound by your body, your environment, or your time, the thoughts you have are the realist raw experience. That's how you know you've entered a place of object referral. And that's why the law of mentalism is the first principle in the Kabbalah. The law of mentalism is everything starts in mind. So to move into the state of universal intelligence, it's not to go deeper into the physical world. It's not to define ourselves further or look for more answers or dive down that rabbit hole. It's actually just to let it go. That's actually the secret. Anytime you have a negative thought, just be like, hey, that negative thought actually served me to get back into alignment. Because that in itself was a mirror. It allowed you to see, hey, that's not serving me right now. How do I come back into that stillness of the present moment? And when you come back into that stillness of the present moment and you are no longer reactive to what people say, the outcomes in your life, things that happen to you, you are not attaching yourself to an experience. You're not using your thoughts and emotions to create more of a reality that you no longer want to experience based on resistance. You are allowing. That's one thing I talked about in another video. To desire, to want something is the same thing as to allow. It's like hot and cold are on a spectrum of temperature. Except allowing is moving out of the way and becoming a vessel for the universal truth to come through you and to bring what's yours to you. You no longer have to fight it because you understand that it's not about defining our identity off the objects in our life based on the bodily experiences we have, the environment we find ourselves in, or the time it takes for things to be accomplished. It's actually about this internal state, this feeling, right? This feeling of alignment, that there is no separation between us and the natural harmony of the universal intelligence. That's what you're going for, and that is the first neuroscience secret that I want you to understand. And this was the thing that allowed me to start doing pretty crazy business numbers in a single day. When I realized, hey, these strategies, these mindsets I had about why I couldn't get there, I just shattered them because I'm like, oh, that was me based on object referral. That was me creating a frame of space and time thinking that it had to look a certain way. I just shattered that paradigm and was like, I could do $51,000 in a day. I could do $45,000 in 90 minutes. Who's to tell me otherwise? I just increased my self-referral and was like, I can do this, but I do it through a level of alignment. I do it through a level of clarity. I do it through a level of understanding. And it's all this wisdom. It's all this wisdom. Now, you understand the first thing you need to do is move beyond the body, space, time to step into the universal intelligence. I want you to just, if there's ever a metaphor, just remember, driving the car. Nothing exists besides how real your thought is. Once we're in that alignment with the universal intelligence, how do we collapse the experience we want to have into existence, right? That's one thing I've been seeing in a lot of comments. It's like, Grant, oh, what happens when we enter this 5D place? Like, how do we bring it into the 3D? One, there's no need to complicate the mindset behind that, right? You have to understand mastery is simple. Mastery is simple. So the second thing that I want to talk about is how we can embody the second trait to embody the frequency of our desired experience. So when we enter this place of universal intelligence, right, we step into that quantum field. We are no longer bound by the experiences we have in our life. And what I mean by bound is we don't just define ourselves based off that. If I post a video and it flops, I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, I suck at content creation. I only get 100 views. I'm never gonna. You see how me resisting the fact that I didn't get a bazillion views was the thing and the ceiling I'm setting for myself that's not gonna allow me to move beyond that? Because my subconscious won't even allow me, because it's the thing that I feel is real and true. That's why when you come off the high horse of an outcome-based creation and you start to live for the journey, you start to live for the act of creation, you start to live for the act of always transmutating a negative experience into a more positive one, right? Always climbing that rung, you start to ascend. And when you start to ascend, we're gonna effortlessly change our frequency. Now, one thing Joe Dispenza talks about is we have to go from thinking to doing to being. This is the natural progression. And I'm very confident that 90% of people are stuck right here. This is where that analysis paralysis is. People have thought about every potential way that their life can change. Right, your thought is the most real thing. Whether you guys realize it or not, you are spiritual beings. So it's effortless to think. Our more natural state is in alignment with the spirit and the universal intelligence, which is why thinking precedes material, right? But if you think and do not act, you experience analysis paralysis. I experienced this in business before I just kind of shattered this belief in my life. I'd be like, hey, you know what? I'm comfortable at $20,000 a month. I'm comfortable. I don't need to change. My subconscious and my survival mechanism was like, Grant, even though you consciously, right, the 10% of the mind's like, I want to make 100K a month. I want to do 51K in a day. Yes, that is what I want. Your subconscious mind's like, no, dude, like, I don't understand the English language. I only understand energy and what I'm programmed for. And I'm programmed to keep you comfortable because that signifies biological homeostasis. And the biological homeostasis means we're safe, dude. So you see how the positive or negative experience is actually, it has like the energetics of the universe and of your subconscious mind can't tell the difference. You're the only one assigning that meaning. So you can take a negative thing and make yourself think it's positive, right? People think smoking weed is positive. Hate to break it to you, it's not. And people could think that making 100K a month or making 51K in a day is hard and negative, because that means, oh my God, if I make all that money, I'm gonna have to do more work. I'm gonna have to do extra things that put me in this state of fight or flight, in this state of chaos. Like, no, it can be easy. And it's only easy when you come to a state of neutrality. And that state of neutrality is the highest frequency in the universe. I can break down the spectrum of consciousness after this, but I want to show you how you can effortlessly move into thinking, doing, and being and start to embody the frequency of your desired experience. Actions speak louder than words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Why is that? Because true wisdom is embodiment. Embodiment signifies to the universe, hey, universal intelligence, I understand what I can do. I understand I am the creator. But the way I'm going to signify my wisdom and my true desire is to act on it, to actually do something about it. I'm signifying to the universe, hey, I no longer want to live for the money. I stepped out of my creator business. I sold my ownership in the education company. I'm signifying to the universe, I burned the boats. I'm saying this is my purpose. This is what I'm here to talk about. This is how I want to help people. I want to help elite minds unlock their power even further and transform their life and scale their business. That's what I want to do. I'm demanding that experience from the universe. I'm burning the boats. I'm embodying the frequency, and I'm doing it out of service because I understand how important that frequency is to give. To give means I embody the traits of the Tao. I embody the traits of the universal intelligence because it's an infinite source of abundance. You think God's like, I need something? No. He's like, I have so much love, I want to give it all. I have so much. I need to share it because it is ours. There is no separation. It is for all of us. This will be the thing that transforms your business. Because think about what happens when you hold this frequency. If you start to journal about this, if you start to meditate on this, even if you just make content and leave yourself voice recordings when you have revelations, you're starting to embody that frequency by doing things. It could be simple things by giving yourself love and going to the gym. It can be simple things by reaching out to someone you haven't talked to in a while. Right? That's abundance. That's giving. You're giving yourself. You're giving your natural essence to the world. The 99.9% energy. You don't need to be scarce and just chase down some financial goal. Right? That's a construct. That's an illusion. That's a physical idea. Right? Money is an encapsulation of energy. Energy has no identity. Right? I can give energy in my word. That's a frequency. I can give energy in my love. I can give energy in my time and my service. This is why the first thing I needed to tell you about was the object referral versus the self-referral. Because the object referral is never going to get you to where you want to go because it doesn't even exist. Hate to break it to you. That's just the ego trying to justify its existence in the world. Right? Oh my God, I need time, I need space, I need these books to justify X, Y, and Z. I need this logical experience to be had. No, that's not how it works. The energy is an infinite spectrum of potential in its rawest, purest form. That's what Joe Dispenza talks about. When you start to do things, it can be as simple as buying flowers for your wife, buying flowers for your girlfriend or your mom. That energetically signifies abundance, which will impact your business. It will impact your health. That's why it's not a cause and effect type of thing. It's not an ABC type of thing. All right. When you do this long enough and you embody this frequency, you move into a state of being. This is what Joe Dispenza talks about, but this is what the Bible talks about. Once again, I do not read the Bible as much as I should. I just listen to someone named Myron Golden, who's a great businessman, a great entrepreneur, and he uses biblical principles. His philosophy is if you want to have, you have to do these two things first. The first thing you have to do is be. Because when you are a person, when you are being that person, you will do certain things. And when you do certain things, that allows you to have a certain experience. Now, this is the only thing you need to focus on. I'm going to draw a separation because you need to understand the energetics behind this. You do not need to act in the physical world. You need to act in the metaphysical world. You change your state of being by changing your frequency, because what your frequency is means you will frequently see that thing more in reality. Your frequency is what you frequently see. Right? Here's the spectrum of consciousness. The highest frequency is the Tao. It's authenticity. Because it's one of one. What does one of one actually mean? No separation. No separation means unity. When you signify unification with life itself, you signify the ultimate form of wisdom. You don't need to negotiate with yourself. You understand that you are the creator. You are the universe experiencing itself. You are the infinite potential. But if you are living from a place of fear, I only make $20K a month. You know how crazy that sounds? I only make $20K a month. You're probably in the top 5 to 10% of earners in America. But you sound like a little baby. Wah, I have fear. All I'm after is the dollar. I made $51,000 in a single day because I created an offer that would change people's lives. We provided so much value at a certain price point. We hopped on Instagram Live and said, this is the one day this is open and this is gonna be your one chance to get it. $51,000 in 24 hours. The money was a direct outcome of an internal shift, and that internal shift was service, because I understood if I serve the all, the one, right? I realize I am no separate and I can give more than I get paid in compensation that I couldn't even fathom. This is the secret. And if you're an entrepreneur, this is what you need to invest your time, energy, and attention into, because this is what everlasting success is. If you can figure out how to cultivate this level of alignment in your life at all times, your life will change in 101 different ways, and you don't have to change in 101 ways. You change in one way. And that one way, that one of one shift, signifies the ultimate mastery of the principles of the universe. You cultivate your relationship with God, and everything changes. This is why it's not logical. The logical mind does not comprehend this. The subconscious is not logical. The subconscious does it what you tell it to do. So the more you channel that frequency, the more you become the one-of-one person that focuses on service and unity, you'll start to do that in every area of your life, in your relationships, in your health, in your wealth, in your business, and you will have all the benefits of that. That is why in the Bible they say, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. That's the secret. This is everything that changed the trajectory of my business. Because when you live from here, you're signaling gratitude in advance. You're saying, God, I get it. I'm blessed to be having this experience. I'm blessed to have the tools to be the person to do the things that can change people's lives. What a blessing this is. This is the thing that will transform your business. So if you want to talk about applying for those 1 or 2 spots that I'm opening up for consulting, check out that first link in the bio. I don't have anything to sell. I'm here for service. And if it works for both of us, amazing. If not, show some love, drop a like, subscribe, because we're just getting started. This is what the journey's about. And I will see you in the next one. By the end of this video, I have one goal, and that is to show you how I used a simple 5-step meditation from Dr. Joe Dispenza to go from $80,000 in debt in some of the worst shape of my life to making over 7 figures in my dream business and manifesting everything I wanted and more for a 25-year-old. Now, before we get into the actual video, I want to make sure that you guys grab your 5-step meditation workbook. It's going to be the first link in the description, and this is going to be an entire in-depth breakdown of all the information you need to use a 5-step meditation that I've come up with to let go of the old version of yourself and reprogram your subconscious mind and begin to manifest whatever you want. Now, I also want you to remember that I'm going to be live streaming tonight, Monday, 6:30 p.m. PST. And this is going to be an important one because there's going to be a special announcement on this live stream and you are not going to want to miss it. So let's get into the actual video. Now, I need to show you first how I let go of the old version of me, and then I'm going to show you how I use that meditation to brainwash myself into a state of abundance where 7 figures came to me effortlessly in less than 6 months. Now, before we get into that, I need to show you why change is so hard. I need to show you why your own mind and your own body fight back when you try to manifest a better life for yourself. So I want you to think of your entire biological ecosystem like this, right? We have the brain, we have the body, we have thoughts, and then we have emotions. I've been spending a lot of time touching up on Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. And the biggest thing I took away is that change can feel hard because our bodies become addicted to the feeling of being in a state of fight or flight. Now, what do I mean by that? Fight or flight are lower states of consciousness, okay? It is when we are experiencing anger, fear, guilt, scarcity, doubt. Now, the more consistently we feel that, right, when our brain creates certain thoughts that validate that certain experience and it sends a signal to our body, and that body creates a chemical response causing an emotion, which triggers our brain to fire off more thoughts, then we are creating a subconscious program. And this is why I said I need to show you how I let go of the old version of me. Because the old version of me was channeling a lot of negative things, right? I was smoking weed. I was partying. I was spending money on things I couldn't spend money on. I was in a downward spiral of energy. Because I was in a lower state of consciousness, the energy I was putting out in my thoughts and my emotions and my awareness and what I was focusing on was channeling that experience in my life. Now, I want to show you how we can let go of this old version of us, because the lower states of consciousness actually drain our energetic battery, which is why change is so hard, because these are life-sucking energies. Now, I need to show you how we can move beyond this old version of ourselves and step into a version of us that can manifest more abundance, more success, and more wealth and more love. But I want to show you the 3 areas in which the old you is going to fight for survival, right? Now, let's break it down with body, time, and environment. And we're just going to make this very simple, but it's very important to understand because these are the 3 ways in which your identity or the old you is going to seek to validate a familiar experience. Now, our body aims to maintain homeostasis, right? But if that familiar experience is thoughts and a reality of anger, doubt, fear, loss, and that's something we experience in every avenue of our life, then that is what our body is going to become programmed for. It's what it's going to become addicted to chemically, and then it is going to seek that out. It's going to seek that out in our body, right, through our emotions and through how we feel, right, because this is a chemical response, right? Your body becomes addicted to this chemical release, right? When your adrenaline's super high and you're in that stress state and you're in a state of fight or flight, your body becomes addicted to that chemical. Now, time is going to be something where we experience anxiety and doubt, because this is the timeline on which we want things to change, or the timeline in which our ego is looking to kind of validate the fact that we are not going to get what we want, right? Because you're like, oh my God, it's been 7 minutes. Why haven't I manifested this? Oh my God, Grant, it's been a week. Why haven't I manifested this? It's going to use time as a reason to validate your experience and your inability to change, just like it's going to use familiar emotions, feelings, and chemicals. Now, environment is another place where that stimuli is going to be. So, right, these can be friends. This can be a job. This can be a spouse. Now, all I want to validate for you right now is that this is an external frame of object referral, right? We talked about this in that other video, which means the ego is going to be looking for things in the body, in the time, or in your environment to validate a negative experience, because this is what it's become accustomed to. This is what it's become addicted to, right? So how do we move beyond this? And how do we use the 5-step meditation from Joe Dispenza to overcome this cycle, right? I was addicted to the feeling of shame and guilt when I would get high and I would eat unhealthy food. I was addicted to the fact that it would never work out, right? The time frame, I was like, it will never manifest. It will never be how it's supposed to be, Grant. You're never going to get out of this debt. Just like the environment. I would go to the same bars and see the same people, which validated the same experience, right? That's what my ego was latching onto. It was addicted to what this experience validated and kind of narrowed down the fact that it was looking to create that homeostasis more consistently in my life. Now, we need to understand that with meditation and our proper understanding of meditation, we can overcome this old version of ourselves. But there are two major things I need to tell you about meditation before I show you the actual practice and the actual point of meditation that will allow you to experience this change, right? If we can let go of the old you and we can step into the present moment, which is a new, unfamiliar experience, then you will allow the universal mind or the divine harmony to naturally repattern your subconscious, right? Because we are changing how you think, how you feel, there's going to be a natural repatterning, a natural harmony in which you start to seek that new experience out in the universe, right? But that's also something that goes down in the brain. It's the reticular activation system. But I need to show you guys what meditation actually is. So meditation, people think, is just entering these deep states where you can program the subconscious mind, or it's where you can just prove to yourself that there's no thoughts, which it is, right? You need to engage in that, but I want to show you the real stuff that allowed me personally to go from $80,000 in debt in some of the worst shape of my life to making over 7 figures in business. And what I subscribe to is the idea of a walking meditation, right? I'm just gonna put walking meditation, because this is where the knowledge and wisdom gets put into action. The whole point of meditation in general, whether you're sitting in silence or you're in a walking state of meditation, is to understand this. I showed you what your body is addicted to because what it's addicted to is an impulse, right? Your body is now the master. So it is looking to create an impulse of the mind in which you can go from thought to choice to action to experience to emotion, which eventually replicates the cycle and validates and imprints that homeostasis that your body's looking to replicate. But the whole point of meditation is to create a gap in between what we think and feel and the action we take, right? Because what did I say? It goes from a thought to a choice to an action, right? This is that spectrum we're talking about right here. So this is where we create the present moment, right? This is what the present moment becomes. And in the present moment, whether a thought arises, and before we have to make a decision on the action we're going to take, we can make a new choice in this meditation, right? In this meditative state of the present moment, our goal is to create an environment of the present moment where we can make a new choice so we do not initiate and put us on another karmic loop of a reaction, right? I've talked about this in my other videos, but this is very important information that I want to nail home. And I want to nail this home because what you need to understand is that changing our existence on a quantum level starts in that present moment. Now, what happens when we make a new choice? When we make a new choice in the present moment, we are actually becoming someone new, right? We are overcoming and we are breaking the habit of being ourselves. Now, the biggest thing I want to show you is that in this new moment, you do not need to manifest 7 figures to get the same change and the same spiritual effect of an elevated state of consciousness that you would if you hypothetically had 7 figures, right? So let me break this down for you. It says logarithmic effect. Because a logarithmic effect is what happens when you implant your mind in a certain way. So a logarithmic effect is the idea of the butterfly effect, right? It's that a small, disproportionate change can create disproportionate outcomes, right? Now, by no means am I a math major or anything, but this is the type of effect, right, where we plant a seed right here and we just experience this exponential boost, right? Now, if you want to create that effect in the quantum, it starts with small things, right? Like an extra 10 minutes of meditation, or an extra 5 things in your gratitude journal, or the act of surrendering or letting go, right? We surrender a negative emotion, which gives us a new experience. Now, you need to understand this because this is what is actually going down in the quantum field. Because the quantum field only responds to energy, if you are making a choice which leads to an action that holds and carries a certain frequency of abundance, of wealth, right? Gratitude is wealthy because you're signifying to the universe how much you have. The more consistently you do this, if you practice daily gratitude, you are going to find multiple things to be thankful for in the day. Then you are going to see negative things that happen to you as something to be grateful for because it is serving you on this experience. And then you are choosing a new experience in which that divine harmony and that source and that quantum field which you're making contact with by choosing that frequency can start to reorganize itself in the external world, because that is where you're placing your time, energy, and attention. This is something super important you need to understand, because this is how we use meditation to overcome the withdrawals of the addiction to the familiar experience and to let go, right? That you do not need to make some big change in order to experience that effect in the quantum field. You want to know what I do? On my list of daily habits, I put 1 minute of meditation, because I'm lowering the ceiling of output and raising the floor. I'm making it easy for myself to engage in that action. Because when I engage in that action of 1 minute, I'll go for 5 minutes. I'll be like, I'm already here for 5 minutes, why don't I go for 10 minutes? And then I get an even more energetic sense of relief for doing that. Now, another thing I want to touch on is that in that moment where you create that gap between an impulse and a reaction, it comes down to a duality of two choices. Are you going to be a prisoner of the past or a pioneer of the future? And I'm going to lead into this a little more as we move on to the 5-step meditation, right? So whether you believe it or not, I actually just planted the seeds of the first 2 steps of meditation, right? Step 1 of the meditation is going to be realizing that you need to let go of your old self, right? We let go of our identity on a broad spectrum, just like in a state of meditation, we let go of a thought that does not serve us. Now, the second thing I wanted to highlight on is the cycle, right? What is actually the practice of meditation and why do we use it? The second thing you need to understand about meditation is that you're using it to overcome the withdrawals of the addiction to the familiar experience, to the chemicals in your body that are no longer serving you. Because as soon as your body starts to feel this unfamiliar experience, it's going to do everything in its power to release chemicals and hormones that get you to start thinking these negative thoughts, preventing you from changing. Which is why I introduced you to the cycle, which is the gap between the impulse and action. And now we're going to get on to step 3. So step 3 is going to be what we do when we create that present moment, right? We're going to surrender and let go. Now, why would be the one thing we do when we finally get to a state of change be to surrender and to let go? Because the secret is instead of having to decide between 99 things you do want, which creates dissonance and confusion, you actually just choose not to engage with what you don't want. You know you want a positive experience, and you know that it will come eventually, but the first step is going to be not engaging with the negative experience. This is going to be important to understand because one of my main philosophies that I think will serve you is that this is an active state of meditation. Because think about it. On a small cycle, it's like this. So we have thoughts, and we have emotions, and we have a choice at each stage. Are we going to identify with that thought that creates that emotion and are going to feel more of that emotion that creates more thoughts, right? This is going to be a cycle you experience on a micro level. But let's look at a cycle that you're going to experience on a macro level, right? So let's say the addict, the body, is going to be fighting back. It's going to be pulling stimuli from your body, the concept of time, and the environment to create a familiar experience. Now, when this arises, right, something of the ego arises, this is an egoic state. And you are going to have a choice, which is why I brought up the prisoner of the past or the pioneer of the future. Now, I'm realizing my drawing is going a certain way, but you have a choice. Are you going to identify as a prisoner of the past? Or are you going to identify as a pioneer of the future? Now, if you identify as a pioneer of the future, you're making a new choice that is going to put you in an unfamiliar experience. And the more consistently you make that choice, it is going to have that energetic, resonant effect on the body and the time and the environment. And the more consistently you do this, the more consistently the natural organizing power of the universe and the harmony is going to serve you in that capacity. Because you're saying, I no longer identify with this familiar self, right? So step one, letting go of the old you. Step two, realizing that you can make a choice when you are in a walking set of meditation, right? Step two is that choice. And then step three is going to be surrendering everything you don't want, right? You're surrendering the familiar experience, which means by a product of that, you are going to start to experience an unfamiliar one, the unknown, and step into a new identity, which is going to channel this energy consistently. Now, I want to introduce you to step four, which is going to be how you can become a true master of what Joe Dispenza preaches and being in a walking state of meditation at all times. I'm trying to introduce you to these cycles because I want to show you that meditation and gratitude and affirmations aren't just things practiced for 15 minutes a day. That we are consistently engaging with the quantum field. We are consistently sending signals into that place, right? If you can come to the awareness that, hey, everything is a walking state of meditation, then you're going to realize it's not just about those 20 minutes that I choose to sit down and me beginning to wait for the experience to happen. What it actually is you're going to have to understand that you are going to be an active participant in the co-creation of your experience. Because a walking state of meditation means you're a co-creator. It means you're going to be picking and choosing the experience you want to have, right? Are you going to pick a certain type of thought? Are you going to pick a certain type of action? Are you going to pick a certain type of emotion? And you pick these things by how you invest your time, energy, and attention, right? Our energetic currency. This is the secret. Now that you understand that when you are in states of meditation and when you're only journaling and experiencing gratitude for 10, 15 minutes a day, you're going to fall back in your own ways because that just becomes more a passive kind of, I just need to check the box. That in itself can be egoic because you're like, I'm not willing to fully change, so I'm just going to do the bare minimum right now. No, there are actually two things in which Joe Dispenza found people would experience spontaneous remission, right? Spontaneous remission is when people would overcome chronic illness and they would not know why. The first thing is people who experienced spontaneous remission knew they were connected to a divine field, right? They knew they were connected to an intelligence beyond them, and they knew that they were connected to it and they were communicating with it and they were part of it. The second thing, and it's one of the most powerful things, is that they chose change. People who are experiencing major illness, if they were told they had 6 months to live, in that moment, they would change how they're living. They're like, I'm not going to be stressed over what's going on at work. I'm not going to be stressed over the traffic. I'm going to choose to love my kids with every second I have left. Now, I did not have a chronic illness like that, but when I was in that state of $80,000 in debt and I was smoking weed, there came a point where I literally could not recognize myself. I could not recognize myself, so my entire existence literally severed from that old identity. And once it severed from that old identity, I was like, oh my God, that wasn't me. And I started to give myself empathy, and I started to allow myself to naturally make that change and step into that experience I want to have. How are you co-creating this experience when you're in an active state of meditation, right? Because we know we need to be in an elevated state of emotion. If you engage in the first 3 steps, right? If you understand you need to let go of yourself, and you understand that meditation or the walking states of meditation are so we can make a new choice in between that impulse and that reaction, and then you start to engage with step 3, how do we get this elevated state of emotion which the manifestations can come true? We get into that elevated state of emotion when we realize that we actually made a change in our life, right? That's the secret. You can visualize it, and that's where you can experience the elevated state of change, but some people have struggle visualizing. Some people have struggling staying in a state of meditation. So how do you actually get an elevated state of emotion? It is through action, and action is from co-creation. So action just means that you are actively engaging with the experience you want to have. When those people experience spontaneous remission, they say, hey, I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm going to love this life while I have it. 6 months left. First of all, a blessing that some of you have more than 6 months left. But that doesn't mean you should go about wasting your time. I encourage you to step into an active state of meditation. And that realization of change and that elevated state of emotion actually moves you into something called a life-affirming energy. So that's going to be point 5 about understanding the meditative process, right? When we create that gap in that present moment and we observe a new change, and that change creates an elevated emotion, what is actually going on there? So, step 5, a life-affirming energy. A life-affirming energy is what happens when the universe or the divine mind starts to repattern and starts to build life out for you, right? This is where I talk about you can just exist in a state of effortless action. Because when you're of an elevated state of consciousness, the energy vortex works in the other direction. So you are no longer, after you let go of your old self, you're going to realize that you can transcend this realm, right? And then what happens to the energy in the higher realms? They're naturally gravitating towards a lighter frequency. It's natural. And because it's natural, it's going to be life-affirming. So instead of having energy taken away from you from being in a lower state, energy and inspiration and inspired action are going to naturally come your way because of this. Now, this is so important to understand, and we can bring in another one of my favorite teachers here, Dr. David R. Hawkins, is that this creates a quantum shift, right? Because on the spectrum of consciousness, for the sake of a simple drawing, I'll just draw it like this. Level 200 is courage. Now, I want you to think this middle point right here is courage. So this is that 200 calibration. When you start to experience courage, you experience a willingness to change. When you experience a willingness to change, you're going to notice that shift. When you notice that shift, you're going to collapse in elevated emotion with the realization of a new experience, and you're going to reprogram your subconscious mind. So I didn't list off crazy things like start a business, go run a marathon to get an elevated state of emotion. I listed off, hey, maybe start meditating for 1 minute, which will parlay into 5, which will parlay into 10. Start a gratitude journal, stay consistent, talk about reasons you love yourself, because those are going to put you in elevated state of emotions. And you're like, hey, it wasn't that bad. I engaged with something. Then you're going to have that realization that moves you into a higher state, and you're going to finally understand that you are creating change and you are no longer bound by the experience you do not want to have. Now, manifestation isn't just about getting stuff. What it actually is about aligning with the high frequency. Got to use purple for this. You ever notice that the energetic spectrum of light is also the same color as the chakras? So like the crown chakra, the highest one, is also what they use for the Tao or pure consciousness. Now, what I want you to understand about these elevated states is that manifestation is about getting things. It's about becoming the version of you that resonates at the frequency that creates a more abundant and better experience for all parties involved. So manifesting isn't actually just for you, it's for you and all the people you come across. Because yes, I did manifest the 7-figure business, but I showed up as a better son. I showed up as a better friend. I showed up as a better business partner because I was resonating at a more abundant frequency. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And that's why this information is so powerful. And this is why the shift happens at a quantum level. And this is the energetics behind it. Because the more you experience that abundance and the more you collapse realities where you're engaging with the active states of the reality you want to experience, you're going to have those life-affirming energies working in your favor. So I want you to refine why you want something. Because when you shift from a survival and fear-based state, which is all me, to a, hey, how does my desires and what do I want to manifest impact my life for the better, but it also impact the collective? And that's going to be a magical experience for all parties involved. So quickly, let's summarize the 5 different things and synthesize it and bring it on home. So step 1 is going to be getting rid of the old you, or at least becoming aware of it, right? Step 2 is going to be the impulse cycle, that we'll call it, right? That's where we create the space in between impulse and action. I'm just going to call it impulse cycle. Step 3 is going to be letting go and surrendering, right? This is what we do when we create that present moment here, right? To become aware of ourselves, or the version of ourselves we want to let go of, we meditate. To realize that, hey, we were just stitching an identity to the experience we don't want to have. We can use that impulse cycle and the act of letting go in order to surrender the experience we do not want to have, which is where we create a gap in between an impulse and a reaction, and we can start to engage in co-creation, right? 4 is going to be the co-creation. That in this moment, you have a choice. Are you going to be a prisoner of the past? Or are you going to pioneer the future, right? And the more consistently you make a conscious choice in alignment with the new reality you want to experience, we move on to step 5. This is where that natural organizing power of the universe starts to work in your favor. When that natural organizing power of the universe starts to work in your favor, that's where we start to experience life affirming energies. And this is the 5-step active meditation cycle that allowed me to let go of the old version of me and brainwash myself to make over 7 figures. Now, this isn't just some meditation that I wanted to give you that you could turn on for 20 minutes and hopefully, wishfully think for things to happen. This is the actual 5-step process that not only Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, but some of the greatest sages and teachers of all time talk about. Because real change only starts when you make a choice. And if you do not make a choice, you will not change. So if you like this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. What if I told you that over the course of the next 15 to 30 minutes, I'm going to give you the simple 3 keys to how I started manifesting over $35,000 every single month by meditating like Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, before I get into those 3 keys, I need to share with you how the manifestation and self-development space is actually scamming you into staying stuck, and how things like affirmations and visualizations are actually keeping you from transforming and unlocking the abundance that you can feel in your mind, body, and soul. Now, the first principle that I want to discuss comes down to a simple thing that Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches. Now, we can fundamentally only exist in 2 states. And those 2 states are either a state of creation or a state of survival. Now, I just want you to know that the survival states The lower states of consciousness can be broken down into simple things like this: fear, doubt, lack. Now, the elevated states of consciousness can be broken down into simple things like this: love, gratitude, abundance. Hey guys, this is Grant from the future, and if you want me to help you make sense of all this fun stuff that we're covering in this video, I put together a free masterclass and a free workbook on how you could break down this information in your own life and use the details and the teachings more in depth in ways like I did to manifest over $35,000 every single month. So if you want that, click the first link in the description. I'll make sure to get that taken care of for you. Enjoy the video. I spent a lot of time diving into my mind, body, soul, and the teachings that all these teachers talk about. And I fundamentally realized that if we are aiming to manifest, or we are aiming to transform our state in order to attain an external experience, then we are setting ourselves up for failure from the beginning. Now, how does this apply to the self-development and manifestation space? Inherently, by consuming content like this, we are signaling to ourselves that we are in a state of lack. Now, this messes up the entire manifestation process, because tell me if I'm wrong, you're probably really good at the visualization. You're probably really good at the affirmations, but you still just can't get things to change and go in the direction you want them to go. And that is because, parlaying off of the first principle that I want to share with you from Dr. Joe Dispenza, we know that the only way we're truly creating our reality are through our thoughts and through our emotions. Now, what's so powerful about this is that visualizations, affirmations, is clarity and intent. It's clarity in like, hey, I want my life to look like this. I want to travel like this. I want to make a certain amount of money like this. I want my family to have these qualities. But if you are aiming to create your life in that way, and you are still operating from a state of fear, doubt, and lack, then there is an incoherence in the way we create our reality. Now, in order to unlock coherence, we need to figure out how to create a clear channel of clarity in our thoughts and clear feelings of emotional certainty that resonate from a place of love, gratitude, and abundance. Now, what you're really looking to do is unlock a state within your heart that unlocks an electromagnetic field that moves in to resonant frequency with the quantum field, into the field of infinite potential. Because when you are doing this, you can now lay communication from your mind, bear with me because I'm not an artist, this is going to be a brain, and you can start sending thoughts into that field that are resonating from a state of creation, right? When we are operating from a place of love, gratitude, and abundance, we're essentially signaling, hey, I've done the work, I've done the meditations, I've put myself in a state where I am so peaceful and present in this moment that there is nothing in the external world that I could desire more than this state that I've unlocked internally. When your mind starts to go silent through meditations and you're no longer, Grant, I need this to be happy. Grant, I need this to feel love. Grant, I need this to feel abundant. Then you know you've entered the higher states of consciousness because you have unlocked a level of wholeheartedness, fulfillment in your energy. When you do this and your heart starts to surge with coherent energy, you actually expand your electromagnetic field up to 3 meters grander than where you already are, which means your energy has now expanded outside of your body into the quantum field, in which we can now begin to plant our thoughts and emotions to coherently manifest something back to us. Now, if we're living in a state of survival, we're creating incoherence. Now, this electromagnetic field isn't going to be as big because the energy's cut off. We're losing energy because it's having a tough time firing. So we might have a tough time getting the energy even out of our heart center. We might have no coherence between our thoughts and emotions. We're probably saying, hey, if I were to give you guys perspective in my own life, I was $80,000 in debt at one point. I had a successful clothing business and it just went off the bridge. And I was smoking weed, I was eating unhealthy, I was numbing myself, right? I was putting myself in a state of fear, doubt, lack, shame, guilt, because I couldn't accept the fact that my reality brought me to this place. It was only when I took self-accountability that I was able to restore my state of being to create from. I was saying, hey, Grant, you know what? It's okay. Yes, we experienced these things. Yes, we said we wanted to get out of debt, but we're still smoking weed and eating like crap. That is okay. I was able to find things that brought me love, gratitude, and abundance. And I promise you, it is in the simplest of things, and it is not going to be in the dollar amount you manifest. It is not going to be in the size of the house. It is not going to be in the partner you attract. It is going to be in finding reasons to fill your heart and fill your essence completely. I found so much love, joy, and abundance in walking my dog with my mom and my brother. I was like, this is the blessing. There's no amount of dollar, there's no amount of Rolexes or sports cars that could ever take away from this abundance that I found. Now, when I was able to start operating from this place of love, I was able to start operating from a place of selflessness. And this is going to parlay us into the principle 2. And this is the bridge we'll use into how we can start attracting more abundance. Now, I had to share survival versus creation as the first principle with you. Because if you're in a state of survival, then your body is going to be consuming energy to protect itself. So you're not going to actually have the ability to unlock energetic potential to restore growth, to restore happiness, to restore success. Now, how do we call this energy back into the present moment, right? If we need to change our state of being, we need energy to do so. How do we unlock this infinite potential energy that is our God-given birthright? Now, I want you to think of where your head's at 24/7, right? So there might be times you're focused on events in the past. And there might be times you're focused or worried about things in the future. Now, the truth is all we can do is create from this present moment, right? So in this moment, we are naturally carrying a resonant frequency with us, right? The way we carry this resonant frequency is, like I was saying earlier, by thinking certain thoughts that we send out into the quantum, right? Thoughts are frequencies with information we send out. And by attracting back to us emotions associated with the clarity that we have internally. Almost got myself tripping over the whiteboard. As you can tell, I'm a little rusty. Now, let's say we're thinking about what we want our life to be in the future, right? This is our family that we eventually have. This is the amount of money we make, right? We're getting clarity, right? We're placing our thoughts into a visualized state of clarity, right? That's first step. But let's say after we're starting to philosophize these thoughts, we're like, Grant, you had that failed business where you made out with $80,000 in debt. Are you sure you're going to be able to do that? As soon as I think that thought, I recreate an emotion associated with this $80,000 in debt, which changes my energetic state. I'm starting to recreate the thing that I experienced externally with being in debt in my internal world, even though that was 5 years ago. So now my body is experiencing a state of incoherence. And then I'm like, Grant, remember all that time you suffered on the way to your success? And how it was so hard for you to unlock this transformation and overcome this. In this moment, I'm so afraid of going backwards that I'm giving my time, energy, and attention to the past. So I'm inherently creating incoherence, right? Because now my thoughts and emotions are not resonating at a higher frequency and elevated state. I was thinking positive thoughts about visualization, about affirmation, about, hey, this is what I want to experience. But doubt crept in because my state of being didn't change. And this is why I tried to expose the scam at the beginning. Because if we don't learn to change our internal state to unlock wholehearted fulfillment, abundance, the infinite potential that is at our fingertips and without us at all times, within us and without us, right? Then we're never going to be able to truly manifest or unlock the transformation we're going for. Now, how do we truly create in this present moment? Now, let's say that I learn to surrender those emotions. And every time I'm triggered, I'm like, you know what, Grant, that's not you. That's a subconscious program. That's an old version of you don't want to experience. Then I start to remove my fear of the past. The thoughts that I'll never get better, that I'll never be able to transform. And let's say that I'm like, hey, I know that I want to experience financial freedom. I know that I want to have a loving wife and children. I know that I want to impact this world before I leave it. But if me thinking about it every day gives me anxiety, it gives me analysis paralysis, then it is clearly not the thing that I need to be focused on right now. So I'm going to restore my energy from the future as well. And what does that leave me with? That leaves me with my ability to plant my thoughts and emotions in the energetic potential of the present. Now, why is the present moment so important? And why is it the thing that all of the sages, the greatest teachers, the greatest philosophers, and even neuroscientists and doctors are talking about? Why is this the thing we need to understand in order to see true transformation? Why is this the thing that we need to inherently live by? Now let's break it down. Which leads me into our third principle from Dr. Joe. Now, as you can see, I'm not directly telling you how to meditate. I'm teaching you how to unlock a walking state of meditation in everyday life to attract a certain level of abundance as we navigate old versions of ourselves, as we learn to reclaim our power, and as we learn to plant the quantum field with something we do want to experience. Now, what Dr. Joe says is your body is so objective, it can't tell the difference from something you're experiencing externally or something you're experiencing internally. Now, me personally, I find a lot of success in overcoming the doubt of the internal world through action in the real world. But you can go another route too. You can unlock a certain level of abundance, happiness, wealth through meditations, through visualizations that you can use to carry out in everyday events. But I'm going to show you how you can hack the energetics of the universe to experience that on command. Now, in this present moment, if we strip our existence down to a fundamental subatomic level, we know that the electron cloud is 99.9% energy, right? It's literally infinite potential. So for the sake of frequency, it's like resonating so fast we can't even see it with our eyesight, our touch, sound, taste. None of our physical senses are able to interpret that type of frequency, but it's there, right? This is the field that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. This is the universe that everyone manifests from. This is the unmanifest, the Tao that existed before all creation. Now, how do we call upon this? So, if you are giving your energy to a past you don't want to experience, or if you're giving your anxieties to a future that you do not have yet, you are communicating that to the quantum at all times. And what happens is through your coherence or incoherence, right? So for the sake of manifestation, let's say you've unlocked the present moment and you're very clear on you're saying, hey, I want to manifest $35,000 a month, right? This was something that I wanted to do in my coaching business. How am I going to get there? How am I going to manifest this? Now, I needed to find a way to recreate an energetic sensation, an emotion that gave me a new experience. So how did this happen? Now, the more consistently you find your ability to be in the present moment, the more consistently you're going to be able to communicate these thoughts and emotions you want to experience. And the more consistently you do that, you're going to be able to lower an experience into 3D matter, right? This is what everyone overlooks. They're looking into this 3D world for what they want to experience, right? They're saying, hey, I want to manifest $35,000, so I'm going to look externally to see if I can make that happen. That's not the case. You're not going to just be able to make that type of money walk right in the door. You're going to have to change something about your energetic state that manifests this, right? So you're going to have to create an energetic current of coherence in this space that is communicating with the quantum field. And because you're vibrating at that frequency, the 3D matter will have no choice but to reflect it to you. That's what the mirror principle is. Now, if I were to break down how to financially attain abundance, I started to break it down a bit when I was $80,000 in debt, right? When you have $80,000 in debt, you are not abundant by any means. But there were other ways in which I found abundance, and I'm going to list them out for you, right? So I'm going to say my family. And it was simple things like walks. I'm going to say the gym, because I found a reason to experience abundance in my health. I found abundance in my spirituality, because it gave me faith. And the list goes on. The better you are about unlocking gratitude and abundance in your life, you have to understand that this right here, this money that I wanted to manifest as a coach, is an energetic frequency. And I cannot control what I receive. I can't just say, hey, universe, give me this without giving something in return. So all you have to do is change what you give, right? I started to give abundance. Now, it wasn't necessarily me spending money. It wasn't necessarily me buying whatever I wanted to be abundant. It was finding reasons like my family, the gym, and my spirituality to curate a frequency of abundance in the present moment. And when I found this abundance in the present moment, I was able to send thoughts of abundance of that equitable frequency to the quantum field, which inherently drew experiences back to me. I experienced that abundance on those walks. I experienced that abundance by increasing my health. I experienced that abundance by increasing my faith. And by default, I changed who I was, which changed the experience I had in the 3 dimensions. Now, for my coaching business and what I do, this is how I operate on a daily basis. If I'm not seeing things that I want to see, if I'm not seeing growth in the ways that I want to attain them, I need to change my internal state. I need to overcome the limiting beliefs of, hey, you do need to improve your content. Hey, it's okay to take a break. Hey, learn to be better. Don't be afraid to grow. Don't have an ego thinking you're perfect, right? That is me finding ways to be abundant and always learn to grow, to always learn to churn this internal state. If you're able to unlock this internal state and this internal clarity that the transformation lies within, then you're going to be able to manifest whatever you want. But this is how I unlock this, by meditating like Dr. Joe. You have to understand that meditation is just your ability to create a new state now in the present moment. Why do you meditate? So you can disconnect from the distractions of the 3D world. You can disconnect from the distractions of your environment, your body, and your time. And in doing so, you unlock this transformation in the present moment. Now, if you like this video and you want to check out more, I have a video in the description about how I manifested 7 figures with Dr. Joe Dispenza, so I recommend checking that out. Don't forget to grab your freebie that goes with this videos. And if you want to check out more about what I do, click the first link, get that freebie. And if you don't need any of those things, drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special video for you guys today, and it is going to be all about how you can enter flow state on command. Now, this knowledge changed my life and allowed me to step into a place of effortless creation. So today, I want to introduce you to 4 steps that you can use to effortlessly transform your life. It's how we're going to overcome struggle, release resistance, enter flow state, and recover and recharge to make sure we can do this on command at all times. Now, I want to make sure that you guys have everything you need to succeed, so I put together an entire workbook for this video that's going to have everything you need, from the science to exercises to the different information you can use to leverage in your everyday life to transform it. And I also want to just let you guys know that tonight, Wednesday, I will be streaming at 6:30 p.m. PST, so I'd love to see you guys there. But let's get into flow state, right? Flow state is going to be how we merge effortless action with alignment. How can we remain in a place of peace of mind, of clarity, of spiritual alignment, and still channel our goals and take action on them? So, flow state is the effortless merging of action and alignment. Now, what's so powerful about this insight and this wisdom that scientists and gurus and the greatest minds of all time have come to is that when you step into flow state, you enter a state of heightened states of awareness, states of altered states of consciousness. So if you're trying to step out of a familiar experience into a non-familiar experience where you can create a new life for yourself, flow state is going to be the thing in this moment that allows you to get you there. Now, I always like to talk about Taoism because the Tao is the way. It is effortless action. That's what Wu Wei is, effortless action. Effortless action is letting go of forcing outcomes and stepping into a place of power. When you step into a place of power, you naturally align with life's rhythms so that tasks unfold more organically, right? To bring it all together, what is this? This is inner and outer symbiosis. This is how we change our internal state to reflect it in the external one. In a lot of my videos, I talk about duality, right? Because it's the one thing that keeps people stuck. They don't realize that they are actually battling their internal states. So how can we take our inner world and reflect our outer world in a place of effortless harmony? That's the $1 million question. Now, we achieve symbiosis when our inner states, our thoughts, actions, and beliefs align with our outer actions. That is the balance of the yin and yang. If you can channel the highest frequency of an internal state through your feeling, through your visualization, through your meditation, through your positive thoughts, and you can match it in the external world with the proper actions in the direction of your goals, you are going to enter flow state effortlessly on command. Instead of experiencing resistance and forcing life to go how you want it to, you merely gently align your mind, body, and soul with deeper insights to experience more effortless action and creation and transformation in your life. Now, the secret is when your mind, emotions, and actions align, you create a vessel in harmony with life's flow. So you can achieve spiritual flow where spirit and the natural harmony of the universe can come through you in effortless ways. Now let's move on to pillar one, right? Pillar one was struggle. How can we overcome the resistance that internal and external things place upon us, right? How can we overcome struggle? Now, the two things that we're going to need to look at with a heightened state of awareness are internal forms of resistance and external forms of resistance. This is what Dr. Joe Dispenza says when he talks about overcoming your mind, your body, and your environment. They all have ties to the internal and external world. That's the secret. Mind and matter are not separate. And that when we can learn to overcome internal resistance, we are going to experience less resistance in the external world, which is why I like to coin the term inscension. Because if we can overcome the struggle that we place upon ourselves in our internal world, in our internal states of joy and fulfillment, then that has no choice but to reflect in the external world. With technology and busy routines, deep resistance arises when our internal world is at odds with the present moment. And that comes through in the form of worrying and limiting beliefs and doubt. So I want to give you a little hint that when you feel tension or fear, you are signaling misalignment between your conscious mind, what you choose to do in this moment, and your deeper sense of self and that presence that is always there. The deeper sense of self is tapped into that 99.9% energy. The internal world is pure potential. This is what the concept of self is, right? You are no thing and everything through the laws of quantum physics and the quantum field. That is truth. Except we create our own resistance through blaming external factors, right? We blame coworkers, we blame our parents, we blame weed, we blame alcohol, we blame our partner, our girlfriend, our boyfriend. We are placing blame on the realm of effect. Now, I want to let you in on a little secret. You actually do not need to add anything to your life to experience the most magical transformation. It's actually the mere secret of letting go of the resistance, which is removing power from the external things that cause resistance in our lives. If someone is toxic in your life, remove them from your life. That is power. You are not forcing yourself to fit them into your life because you feel guilty that you had a relationship with them since you guys were childs. No, it's about power. It's about no longer forcing the universe to meet our needs and to stepping out of that place of resistance and allowing life to naturally flow through you. Now, I want to kind of move on to pillar two. In pillar two, we're going to talk about how you can release that resistance and start to experience the natural flow. So what we need to do in order to remove resistance, and this is what a lot of people talk about, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. A lot of gurus throughout all time talk about this. And it's going to be mind and body convergence. How do we create a pure vessel? Oh God, we're all over the place today. A pure vessel to be receptive to universal download and insight, to be receptive to the infinite intelligence. This is the question that we're going to answer. Now, I always ask, Grant, how do I achieve my goals? How do I manifest this thing in my life? I want this thing so bad. How do I do it? I'm going to give you the secret, and it does not make logical sense. So when your conscious mind speaks up right now, and you're like, it couldn't be that easy. Why are you going to listen to the conscious mind that's only 5% of the experience? When the subconscious mind, when you fill it with this information about the natural flow and the effortless harmony, through repetition, will actually be able to channel that experience right now. Now, the secret to mind and body convergence is actually about removing the things in between us and our desired manifestations. If we're here and we want to go here, but there's 10 steps in between us and that goal. You see how you're creating 10 different points of resistance. Now let me put it another way. If we are here and we want to go here, and there are no steps in between us and that outcome, you just manifested your reality upon command. So the secret is, and when you understand the laws of the universe and the energetics, you will realize that all you actually need to do is change your internal state, to change your internal frequency through your mind and your body, through your thoughts and your emotions. And if you make that your sole purpose, your frequency will emit the resonant energy of what you want to manifest and experience. If you want to experience more wealth and abundance, you can be abundant right now. And you can do that through service, through giving, right? Giving is the act of saying, I have enough and enough to share. You are actually channeling that frequency, and you are not allowing 10 different things to get in between you and the desired outcome. Now, one more thing I want to highlight in between you and achieving flow state and manifesting whatever you desire is going to be one simple realization. And it is going to be the realization that you are already naturally connected to the infinite intelligence. I promise you, there is a method to the madness with my content. There is a reason this is the thing I talk about. Because if I can put out enough content in the form of YouTube videos, in the form of workbooks, in the form of live streams, in the form of podcasts, and it is rooted in this truth, I understand this authentically in my heart. That regardless of what Grant wants, regardless of how big of a stage I want to speak on, how much money I want to make, how many subscribers I want to have, I'm not letting my egoic mind step in between me and the source of truth. And that source of truth is you are connected to what you want to experience. You just need to remove the resistance. You need to wipe dust off the mirror, like the Buddha says, and realize that you are already naturally in flow state. That life is already naturally coming through you. It is that subtle breath, that subtle energy in your fingertips. It is that space of silence in which you experience your thoughts and emotions. It is everywhere and nowhere at the exact same time. It is beyond all paradox. And that's why I make content about the duality of man. Now, I want to get into point 3. And point 3 is going to be how we can truly come to the conclusion that we are in flow state, that we are tapped in to the universal intelligence, right? And we're going to call these things flow triggers, right? How do we know we're getting downloads from the universe? How do we know that we are tapping into the quantum field and the infinite intelligence, and it's guiding us in the direction of our soul's purpose and where we want to go? I'm having a tough time with this expo marker today. Flow triggers. Now, we had to go through the first 2 points because you are going to experience struggle. You are going to experience resistance because it is not logical that this type of thing exists. It is beyond all logic. And when you can truly start to step into that flow state, you just need to realize that you need to let go of the resistance. And when you let go of the resistance, you will start to experience flow triggers. And I'm going to tell you one thing that one of my personal sages and teachers in my life gave me. And it is going to be the difference between expansion and contraction. Now, the reason I talked about in point 2 that we need a pure vessel is because we need to be able to decipher the difference between the stimuli from our environment, from the triggers telling us to go into flow state versus telling us to, hey, that's out of alignment. I actually need to let go of that resistance. I should not engage with that activity, right? So expansion is that feeling of enthusiasm. It's that feeling of excitement. It's that calling, the, oh my God, you kind of get giddy, right? That's why they say divinity is childish. Because it's fun. We're here to play. We're here to be in alignment with the natural flow, and that realizing we are connected to that source allows us to have fun and be playful with the experience, right? I want you to think of a battery. If you are in a state of expansion, you are getting charged. You are becoming less matter and more energy. You are rising into a higher state of consciousness. Versus if you are in a state of contraction, you are at a lower frequency. And this is what Dr. David R. Hawkins' map of consciousness talks about, right? We have the Tao, and then we have fear. But the secret about energy is that in higher states, energy is working in your favor. That's why it becomes effortless, because you are in alignment with energy flowing. You are like a balloon. You naturally are supposed to rise into a higher frequency, but we are actually the thing making decisions based on triggers in our environment that move us off alignment, right? If you're smoking weed, if you're drinking, if you're eating unhealthy food, then you are not going to have a pure vessel to make decisions in alignment with expansion or contraction. And when you are doing those things, you're going to move into a denser state. So your energy is naturally going to spiral. That's why they say we're going down the rabbit hole. You trip, right? But the secret is when you realize you are in control and you have the power to create, you just make the decision in alignment and you are naturally going to rise in alignment with the highest frequency. But true revelation is that you are connected to the Tao. Knowing precedes thinking, right? Thinking is deliberation. To know is a natural state. It's a feeling. You don't need to deliberate the concept to understand this. I get a lot of people commenting and say, hey, Grant, I don't know what you said, but it's how you said it that made me feel something. And that's because I'm trying to be here 10 toes down to earth, and connect you guys to the information and the source that exists within you at all times. And that's the secret. This is the life-changing information. This is the thing that will transform your life effortlessly. And all you have to do is get out of the way of it. And we do this through understanding flow triggers. If you're in a state of expansion, it's going to be like winks from the universe at all times. You're going to naturally attract opportunities to you. People are going to show up out of the wood creeks to just make it happen. That's the power of being in alignment. Because when you are in true alignment, you are of selfless service to the highest frequency. And when you are of selfless service, the universe is going to attract that energy to you because it's saying, hey, this vessel is performing our job for us. He understands something. Let's give him more resources to naturally make this happen in his life. Versus people that are consuming, this is a great way to put it, right? It's creation versus consumption. If you are creating, that is an act of giving. If you are consuming, that is an act of taking, right? If you are creating, you are expanding the energy. You are adding more to it. If you are consuming, you are contracting it. You are taking away from the pie. This is how you're going to know if you're in flow state or not. It is going to be a state of subtle presence. It is not some trippy psychedelic experience. It is a state of pure focus and alignment with an outcome. It is where you merge the internal and external world through symbiosis. It is where awareness and action merge as one. It is beyond all duality. It is beyond this and that. It is beyond the yin and the yang, because it is the moment. It's the present moment. It's the entire pie, baby. Now, let's get into the final point. Now, moving into point 4, it is going to be rest and recovery. It is going to be the moments in between the expansion and contraction, right? And I'm going to show you why you need the rest. That you cannot always be in pursuit. You cannot always be forcing an outcome. You cannot always be pursuing things. So, point 4, recovery. Like the waves, they are always going out to shore and they are expanding and contracting, right? That's what we talked about. You are always going to be getting those flow state triggers. Now, if you are expanding, you're going to move into effortless action if you stay in alignment. It will start to flow like water. That's how powerful it is. But there are going to be things where you feel contraction, and you are actually going to feel contraction after effortless action, because it is going to be your signal from the universe that your job is done. Your time has come to rest, and the water must go back out to sea. Recovery is so important because not even the heavens can force change and transformation at all times. And even nature takes time to rest. Even storms come to an end. Even the animals throughout the animal kingdom go to sleep. But even though the sun sets, it will always rise again. That is the secret. So realize, I do not want you to think that an effortless action is all about this pursuit. It is all about doing something. It is actually about being a tuned vessel to feel the calling from the Tao, from the flow state. It is going to naturally guide you. You are connected to it at all times. You have to rest. You have to recover. And I'm erring on the side of caution right now by telling you that you will experience contraction even though you think you're doing a positive action, right? Something that was once expansive for you will eventually become contractive. And that is just the natural flow of the universe, right? That's how it is. Everything has its ups and downs. Life is like a roller coaster sometimes. Life is like the ocean. The waves crash and come back out to sea. This is so important to understand. So make sure to rest and charge your battery, because you need to be a pure vessel to understand this. Now, we're coming full circle on this. So if you haven't already, I want to make sure you grabbed your workbook and you're going to tune into the stream at 6:30 p.m. PST night, because we're going to be going way deeper into flow state and you're going to have an opportunity to interact live with me. But let's move into the conclusion and the summary and synthesis of all this knowledge. So in conclusion, the 4-step roadmap that is going to be your guide to effortless transformation is going to be going from struggle, right? That initial resistance preventing us from stepping into action. Then we're going to go into release. This is where we let go and remove the resistance in between us and what we want to experience. Then we're going to enter flow. And flow is going to feel like effortless action sometimes. When you're experiencing that expansion and you're experiencing that effortless state of creation, follow the calling, follow the flow state. But as soon as you feel that contraction, just know it's a sign for recovery. And when you are recovered, the cycle resets itself. And that the action you once performed in flow state may not be the action that puts you in flow state again. So you're going to experience this cycle. It is the circle of life. Now, let's talk about a few different key aspects of each so you understand what stage you're in pursuit of your goals, right? If we're trying to find the symbiosis between the internal world and the external world, and we're trying to find that effortless action between our awareness and our goals, and the step-by-step process to achieve those things, we need to understand key points about struggle, the release, the flow, and the recovery, and how they work together. So struggle is the initial effort. It's the phase that can feel uneasy or mentally taxing. You just need to recognize that it is the time where you are simply warming up to change. Now, releasing is letting go. You have to allow your mind and body to experience that convergence where you shift from tension to openness. It is like setting down a heavy burden. That's what it's going to feel like when you release something. It is not something you do. It is the act of letting go that frees your energy. Now, flow is going to feel like full immersion. It is going to be the sweet spot where the task seems to do itself. It is going to be that expansion, that energetic recharge. It is magnetism. You're being called to move into that space, which is why we need a clear vessel to experience that flow trigger. Now, as you're in that state of performance, just remember, recovery will come upon you, and we will need to slow down and allow space for integration. This is going to be where you have quiet reflection. This can be where you have gentle movement or restful activities that help you integrate the experience. You have to step into other activities that allow you to experience that peace of mind and that presence and that openness, and realize that your action will need to reset at some point. You cannot be giving at all times. It is like the oceans and the tides. Now, when you stick with a task through struggle, you condition your mind to expect a more rewarding outcome. Over time, this rewires your responses to challenges, making flow more accessible in diverse situations. So if you guys enjoyed this video about how you can enter flow state on command, and I taught you a little bit more about the Tao and Wu Wei effortless action, I want you to drop a like, subscribe, and I want you to comment the most powerful insight you got from this video. As always, much love, much appreciation, and thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers. I'll see you in the next one. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can access a level of your mind only 0.4% of humanity gets access to. You will also have a proven roadmap to unlock true energetic success that's everlasting, effortless. And through this process, I'm going to introduce you into simple practices that you can use to surrender limiting beliefs in old, outdated identities that no longer serve your goals. But in order to do this, I want to help you understand about how Dr. Joe Dispenza turned me into a money-making machine. Because through these 3 simple stories, I'm going to show you my evolution to unlocking these states and how it actually turned me into a version of myself that made success effortless. But I need to introduce you to the one thing that is keeping everyone stuck in a paradigm preventing progress. Now, Dispenza was a major factor in demystifying the mystical, but people struggle to unlock their true potential because they fixate on the messenger as law, not the message, right? So whether it's Joe Dispenza, it's Jesus Christ, it's Napoleon Hill, it's Bob Proctor. Everyone is so fixated on the messenger as law, they miss the lesson. They miss that necessary message that's going to unlock the states of mind you're after. So be weary. As we embark on this journey together, as we embark into this video, I want you to focus on the message, not the messengers. Because if you can extract the true essence of these teachings, you're going to have everything you need to unlock the states you're after. Now, the biggest mistake people are making when trying to manifest more success is they're solely feeding off the material world, right? This is what they use to derive access as a source of creation. Right? They're looking at the dollar amount in their bank account. They're looking at the car they drive, the attractiveness of their partner, right? They think their success is reliant upon this external world. I'm going to get into a paradigm shifter to help you understand how that is actually nothing to do with what success truly comes from. Now, we have 3 teachings that I'm going to extract the same message from, and we're going to learn to wipe the messenger from those teachings and start to build in the direction we want to go. Now, the first is seek ye first the kingdom of God. That comes from the Bible, right? We have as above, so below, as within, so without, right? These are esoteric teachings. We've seen it in the Kabbalion. And we also have change your thoughts, change your emotions, and that will start to create your new reality, which is Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, the paradigm shift. I want to introduce you to a concept, and you guys are going to look this image up as you watch this video, or you can look it up after, but I want you to look up the map of consciousness because Dr. David R. Hawkins dedicated his life to actualizing this map that is able to measure the energetic states of human consciousness, right? So there's only been 3 people to calibrate at the highest level, right? The highest level of pure consciousness of 1,000, essentially the frequency of God, of the source, was Jesus Christ, Krishna, and Buddha. Now, a huge majority of the population is below this 200 level right here at around 190, right? So people are operating from a state of force, and we're going to break down what this looks like in the duality of operating from these places. So now we are transitioning into the paradigm shift, and I'm going to start walking you through some actual information that is going to teach you about the energetics behind all the manifestation stuff, right? So if you've been struggling to change your state, if you've been struggling to live from the end, if you're falling victim to old unconscious programs, limiting beliefs, outdated paradigms, if you can understand and internalize this wisdom, you're going to have everything you need to truly transform. Now, I want you to first understand that this is the end of the world of cause and effect, right? We think we do A, which leads to B, which leads to C. That's what the ego wants to think, that it has control. But through mapping consciousness, we understand that consciousness actually operates in attractor patterns, right? So this frequency that you're operating at is actually the thing attracting all of the experiences to you. Now, this is non-linear, right? So not to get too complicated, but I want you to think of how all we have is the present moment, right? So technically, your experience of the present moment is arising spontaneously, right? It is not like premeditated. It is something happening right now. You're watching this video right now. You didn't know you were going to watch it. You just clicked on it. You said, I've seen those red glasses before. I'm going to watch that video, right? It wasn't you woke up at 8 a.m. and you said, at 9 a.m., I'm going to watch this video that Grant just posted, right? That's an old, outdated Newtonian frame of the universe. So we need to first eliminate that mindset, which leads us to attractor patterns. And we're going to start breaking this down, right? So I'm drawing it out in a simple graph. We see A, which makes it look like it led to B, which makes it look like it led to C, but that is like a sequence in reality that we are experiencing something, right? You woke up, you watched the YouTube video, you're like, aha, light bulb moment, right? A, B, C. But the truth is, the frequency that you are at right now is going to be how you experience the content in this video, right? If you're in a state of force, if you're in a state of lack, if you're in an unconscious pattern, you're going to be like, I'm never going to get better from this. No matter what this guy in the red glasses says, he's not going to be able to change me, right? You see how you are going to derive that level of consciousness from this information. But if you're at a higher level, if you're transitioning out of the level of 200, you're moving into states of willingness, states of acceptance. You're like, you know what? He is right. Maybe I was so focused on the messenger when I'm ready to learn the message. Oh my God, this message is making a lot of sense, right? Now, what's so powerful is that these attractor patterns have fields of dominance, right? This essentially means that the higher frequencies make the lower frequencies submit. So someone that's calibrated at level 700, let's just say 750, for example, that was Mahatma Gandhi, right? He's the one that says, be the change you wish to see in the world. That's another one we can throw right here with, as within, so without. Be the change you wish to see in the world. He brought down the entire British Empire without lifting a hand. That's what Dr. David R. Hawkins talks about in his book. Someone that calibrates at this level compensates energetically for 70 million people below the level of 200 on the map of consciousness. Now, below 200 is the state of force, right? This is where you are more selfish in your journey. You're saying, this is all about me. You're consuming the life energy. You're not giving energy to the world around you. You're not affirming life. You're not abundant in your source. This is why things are forceful. You're experiencing resistance. This is why it feels you likely have to chase things, right? This is why success or your dream partner or peace of mind or your dream body might feel like it's fleeting at times, like you'll never be able to get it because you're chasing it. But the flip side of this, when we can move beyond level 200, which is courage, right? The courage to be different. We're saying, hey, I'm willing to overcome myself in order for something better. You start to move closer to states of unity, right? You start to see yourself in others. You start to hold the door open for strangers. You start to give compliments. You start operating from a place of power, right? Power is something that is. It's like gravity. Gravity does not care whether you believe in it or not. That apple will still fall from the tree. But the trick is the ego thinks it's going to be the one that snips the apple from the tree and made it fall. But gravity existed before that moment, right? This is kind of where we can start to understand the energetics, right? That infinite field of potential that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, the Tao or the source or the pure consciousness that all these teachings talk about is this energetic state where A, B, and C all exist in one moment. Now, this map of consciousness is all about the calibration of truth. So when you ascend past 200, you go 500, which is love, 540, which is unconditional love. You move up to 700, which is peace. Then you move to level 1000, which is pure consciousness. Those states are no better than any of the others. It's like bricks in a wall. So do not try and be someone you're not, because a brick that is lower on the wall serves the same purpose for a brick that is higher on the wall. But you need to understand that these lower states are not inherently wrong. They're not negative. There's nothing bad about them. These lower states of force just signify the absence of truth, right? If you want to dive into this, I'll link the books, I'll link everything you need to kind of go deeper into this information. But now I want to show you how you can use this in your own life, right? So you need to understand that intention is the source. The intention you do things with is the thing that is calibrating your consciousness, right? That is what we plant in our minds energetically that manifests spontaneously. So let's go back full circle to how can we become more abundant? How can we make more money? How can we unlock success effortlessly? If you're coming from the place of, I want to make more money, that's going to be force, right? So that is the frequency, the lower state of energy that you're calibrating the inner field with. So you will manifest A, B, and C, right? You will probably, A, I'm going to start a business because I want to make money. B, experience some bumps in the road. C, give up. Versus if we come over to a higher state of energy, that energy and intention is, I want to serve others. I want to make their life better because I've had the experience in doing so. From this state, you're going to start the business. You're going to have the challenge, but you're going to overcome it because you want to serve others. You don't care that the money's not there. You just want to do good by others. And in doing so, you will attract those people that are going to work with you. So that is truth. This is falsehood. The falsehood embodies the state of force, or feels like you're chasing things, right? People are going to be able to unconsciously feel the energy, which is why they're going to know that you have a means to an end, which is why people aren't going to do business with you, because their body can feel it. When you quote unquote get a bad vibe for someone, or you're like, something's just off, that's exactly what the map of consciousness is all about. Dr. David R. Hawkins was able to calibrate this truth because our body and our kinesiology is connected to the field of consciousness. So he's done through millions of tests that our body will go weak in the presence of falsehood, which is the absence of truth. So push down on the arm, drop. But truth, when you push down on the arm, it stays up, because in the presence of truth, it makes you stronger. It's life affirming. This is why it is attractive. This is why people can literally do nothing but just be authentic, be who they are, love others, and they're so attractive. I can just snap my fingers right now and say, I want you to think of someone that embodies this trait, that is just effortless, and you're just naturally attracted to them. It's not because they need anything from you. They're not saying, oh, I want Grant to like me. They're just saying, I'm going to treat Grant the same as everyone else, which makes me inherently like them. It comes from pure intention. So now that we've kind of broken down some theory, I want to save you from my mistakes with trying to unlock this energetic ladder, right? If you want to unlock higher states of consciousness that are going to put you in a state of more abundance, more success, more effortless ease, I want to save you from my mistakes, so bear with me. You are going to want to see these three things because it's going to make sense as to why you might have been struggling to transform. Now, I want you to understand this is how you're going to learn to live from the kingdom of God, or live from the end, or experience the elevated emotion first, right? Whatever teaching, it's the message, right? I've stripped this to its core essence. I don't care what messenger you prefer, but this is the message, and I need to tell it through story. So the first business I ever started was called Better Days. It was a mental health brand. And my first instinct was, this is a great opportunity. 2020, everyone just spent all this time inside. I can make money. That is force and falsehood. Now, in that process, I, of course, got struck down from Olympus, let's just say, and learned the lessons. That was the catalyst in my spiritual awakening. That's a YouTube video for another time. But my ABCs, right? My ABCs in that place were, I was a wolf in sheep's clothing. I came off as a mental health brand. I had other intentions to make money. Of course, I wanted to help people, but I put the money first. So it was unsustainable and misaligned, and I went $80,000 in debt. So I had to learn from that. I had to evolve. Now it's time for me to ascend up this map, right? That's when I started my creator agency, where I started to monetize creators. Now, I set out with a true intent. I was like, I'm going to make money. I'm not going to lie about it. But it was still a selfish intent because I was doing it for me. People benefit in the process. My creators did really well. Everyone they sold to did really well, but I was still doing it for me, right? My ABC was, I want to make money. I was honest about it, but I was selfish about it. So I was still in a lower state. I was missing purpose. I didn't understand what success was. I didn't understand what it truly meant. Success is an internal state. It is not the dollar you have in your bank account. It is not the car you drive. It is who you are and how you operate when no one's watching. It is what you do in the dark that puts you in the light. This is the biggest thing people miss. They think that, hey, once I get the money and get the penthouse, people are going to love me. People are going to respect me. No. If you want love and respect, you have to give that to yourself now, right? Respect is saying, I'm not going to eat that piece of cake that has 1,000 calories because I want a six-pack. I want to be healthy. I do not want to have brain fog, right? You are being selfless in that moment because you are putting yourself first. So when you start to take care of yourself, then you're going to have more energy and you're going to be able to become more life affirming. You're going to be able to serve others in this process. Now let's move on to 3, which is what I'm doing right now. So you see my YouTube channel, my Instagram, the business I've created is called Ascension, right? It's not about ascension. It's not about climbing some ladder to some throne. It's about ascension. It's about going within to change yourself. This is me living in my truth. Everything I did led me to this moment. My spiritual awakenings, my failures, the lessons I've learned. It is like I have been being called to this place. This is my fate. That is this ABC. That is the truth. And the intent I have is service. You'll notice I will disappear for 2 weeks and not post a YouTube video. That's because I don't need to do this. I want to do this. And if I'm not feeling like the version of myself that can truly serve you guys, then I'm not gonna force it, right? I'm coming from a place of pure love. I want this information to change your life just like it has changed mine. And in order to do so, I need to give you what I know to be true. Now, I'm not taking any credit for this information, and I'm not going to be the one that truly transforms your life. It is going to be you, right? It is going to come from that inner state. Now, this is truly my end. This is what puts me in an elevated state. This is what's got me up at 10:20 p.m. filming a YouTube video. I just wrote all this out listening to music. This was all off the dome. I did not look at a single piece of note, except for maybe like 2 things down there. See, I can't even lie to you. I am so blessed. I feel it. Like I feel whole. Like I feel no need to change this moment. So that's how I know that I'm living in a state of power. Because I do not need to change this moment to get what I was looking for. I realized that it all was here. It was all within. It's in those moments in silence where it's just me and the whiteboard and my thoughts and my feelings. And I'm like, this is going to impact someone out there. And it's what's got me burning the late night oil. Now you know why I wear the red light glasses. So I'm not looking at a screen or messing up my circadian rhythm. Now, what does this mean for you, right? How are you going to truly see transformation at the end of this video? My goal is that hopefully you started to feel something change internally by being introduced to truth, because that is kind of what is so powerful about this information, is by merely being exposed to it, you'll feel your inner state shift. So if that's something you experience, let me know in the comments, because it's real, I promise. But the question I want to answer for you, the real $1 million question, is how can you effortlessly align with the ABC that makes X amount of dollars, right? We can put an objective number up there. We all got goals. We all got certain income levels we want to hit. Now, the first thing you're going to need to learn to do is surrender the lower states, right? You're going to need to surrender the lower states of consciousness that keep you stuck in an outdated paradigm, right? Who you are now is not going to be the person that gets you to where you want to go. That does not make sense. This old identity and this new reality. No, I need a new identity, which will give me a new reality and experience, right? It's all about changing the inner world. Most people unconsciously feed the paradigm of scarcity and lack with their thoughts and emotions. Think about it. You probably get triggered by something and those old thoughts and emotions come back in and just keep you stuck in that paradigm, right? You've memorized certain thoughts, you've memorized certain feelings, and it's all you're used to. But that is unconscious, right? So what do we have to do consciously in order to move beyond that unconscious layer, right? Joe Dispenza talks about meditation. But what are you learning to do in meditation? You're learning to silence your mind. You're learning to surrender, aka let go of the thoughts and emotions that you're used to. You're literally in a state of nothingness and saying, that thought about the appointment I have at 3 p.m. on Thursday does not serve me right now, so I need to let it go. But if you start to fixate about that future date, that appointment at 3 p.m., you're like, well, I have these goals and I'm not going to be able to go to the gym that day, but it's my priority to get healthy, but I got to go to the doctor and get this checked out. You see how you just get pulled into this realm of duality and it keeps you stuck? You need to surrender the lower states. In order to surrender the lower states, you need to allow the impulse to arise, right? You need to allow these thoughts to come up. You need to allow these emotions to come up. But you must let them pass away. So you need to allow the impulse to arise and pass away. Do not resist them, because it is the resistance. Do not resist them, because it is the resistance that leads to the persistence of the old unconscious paradigm, right? You resist the fact you succumbed to weed again. You resist the fact you ate like shit when you know you should have been doing more for your body. You resist the fact that you chose to watch Love Island instead of working on your business. Guilty. And in doing so, you are putting yourself in a state of judgment. Now, in order to overcome these states, we need to enter a state of self-compassion, a state of self-love. In doing so, yes, we messed up. Yes, we stumbled, but that's okay. Let's keep going. That's part of the journey. Don't worry, everyone does that. You see how powerful that mindset shift is? Instead of, oh my God, you're terrible, you're never going to get better. That's what creates that persistence. That's what creates that traumatic PTSD where you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to change. The final thing I want to give you is you need to submit to a higher power. I said a higher power. I'm not going to tell you which higher power. Luckily, you can decide that. And in doing so, you will relinquish the ego's fight for control. That is one of the biggest things holding you back, is the ego. And it's not even you. It's a set of programs, literally programmed into your mind and body from experiences, from narratives we get fed through media, from how our parents raised us, from that random kid that bullied us in 4th grade, right? Those are things that randomly come up, right? So that's why I'm saying you have to allow that impulse to arise and pass away, because it doesn't exist. If I said, just take a moment right here, right now with me, you feel that nothingness, you feel that stillness, that's the present moment. Billy from 4th grade does not exist right now. He is not a threat. So what if you had McDonald's yesterday? That does not exist right now. It is not a threat. It is something to be surrendered, and you're supposed to give yourself compassion in that journey. Now, the final hack to answer the real $1 million question, right? I titled this video how Joe Dispenza turned me into a money-making machine, but clearly it's got really nothing to do with that. So I know what you want, but if you truly want that, I have to give you what you need. This is what you need. This is the truth. If you want true energetic success, not just success on paper, because that is a big thing I've noticed about the people I work with. On paper, very successful, but behind the scenes, eating like shit, drinking, smoking, chasing all these external things because inside they're feeling a void. They're like, Grant, I need to get off of this treadmill. I need to start prioritizing my relationship with my wife and my kids better. Yes, I've done $10 million a month in volume, but, right? That's the question every successful person asks themselves. What does it all mean? Now, the biggest conclusion a lot of people come to when they start working with me is success is something that's internal. I'm giving you the equation right now to true energetic success. So the first thing is you're going to need a holistic approach and way of life that enhances you and others, right? So if we come back to changing your inner state, let's look at the traits of someone that is successful. They get up early because they didn't stay up late doom scrolling, and they didn't eat crap late at night at 11:30 when they shouldn't. They had a healthy meal at 8. They started to unwind at 9, were asleep by 10, which means their body naturally wanted to wake up at 5, 6. They get up at 5, 6. They don't need to check their phone because they feel so calm and peaceful in that state right now. They're like, I'm going to go outside, get some sunlight on me, read a book, read the Bible, journal, whatever your higher power is. Learn to connect, be present in that state. Then you're going to have your coffee, get your morning routine taken care of, maybe hit the gym, maybe get straight to work. But just throughout the day, think about how that sets the tone versus someone that wakes up at 10 a.m. and they got high the night before and they ate like shit. They have so much judgment when they wake up. They're doing anything in their power to find any type of pleasure that numbs themselves and alleviates them and gives them temporary access to the higher states of consciousness. Addiction is a story for another time. So if you want me to dive more into that, let's do it. Because it all has to do with this. It all has to do with this. Once you realize consciousness is the backbone of everything, you're going to be like, all right, maybe a lot of the things they told me were outdated. Now, next point. The truly successful realize they are a channel acted through to create success in the outer world. Literally right now, I've been yapping for how long? 27 minutes. When this video is over, I could not tell you what came out of my mouth. That's why I put this information down, because I want to make sure I'm giving you the things that are actually going to change your life. But in the process, what comes out of my mouth, I just feel like a channel. It just flows. I realize like my art is my word. I'm a 3 life path. Clearly, I'm a communicator. But this is where I feel present. This is where words just endlessly flow and I do not need to force them. It is my natural state. I can take the waves wherever they need to go. I can feel the change in the energy. You need to find what makes you feel like that, right? Truly successful people realize they are a channel that are being acted through. So once you figure out what your channel is, through sitting in stillness, you're going to be able to create success in the outer world. All the lessons I learned through here led me to this moment. I literally get paid to talk. Now, that is to synthesize information and provide transformation, but that's my intent. I want to serve others. I want to take this complex information and spend 30 minutes just chatting with you, being like, hey, it's not that crazy. This is actually your natural God-given right ability. We do not need to overcomplicate it. Let's slow down and realize like, hey, if we can change the inner world, if we can go from I want to make money to I want to serve others doing something I love because I realize I have gifts that turn me into a channel for this divine elevated state to come through me, life starts to become a lot more magical. You're going to find this inner sense of peace and joy and confidence because you're living to the fullest. You're not living to some ABC that the external world told you you need to live to. Now, in order to capitalize on this, I want you to realize that these successful people identify with sources, right? So they identify with something within. They identify with the fact that they have a stillness routine that cultivates their peace of mind. So the things they do throughout the day are only going to be aligned with that peace of mind. It arises from that state. Now, you can kind of slow down and humble yourself and realize like we don't really have control over the cause and effect. Like, yes, I'm using linear words to describe non-linear states. To be honest, I'm probably not even calibrated that high. I'm just a 25-year-old kid in my red light glasses, doing my thing, loving what I do. But I know that this is true because I can feel it in my being. And I want to bestow that upon you. Identify with sources, not the effect, right? That was the big thing I warned you about in the beginning. People are so fixated on the external world. They're fixated on that external messenger, not the message about going within. When you go within, you might have to face a few demons, but you're going to realize like, oh my God, that like divine state is within me. It's coming out of me. That peace is actually something I experience internally. Once you experience that, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I need nothing else. Then you start to emanate that. Needing nothing attracts everything. We're gonna keep going. I promise the whiteboard videos are only gonna get better. I'm doing what I love. I'm not really creating to like fit like a mold. Like I literally got inspired immediately and sat down at the whiteboard and I said, hey, I'm already in this state, so I'm gonna create this video because the energy just comes through that way. And I hope you guys are getting something from this. The final point is you need to realize that successful people have inner power. They do not lack. They're not coming from a state of force. What does this mean? Inner power is they have no fear of loss because they know they can get it back. I went $80,000 in debt. I was like, I could focus on the $80,000 I lost, or I can focus on that $1.7 million I'm about to make in my creator business because I am the source. That's how powerful this information is. I want you to realize that if you can unlock this, if you can truly surrender the lower states and start to align yourself with higher level intentions, deep diving into this information, you're going to realize, you know what? Whatever I do touch turns to gold. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like this new whiteboard style, if you like me dumping it out first and just keeping myself in that flow state where I can talk and share this information and truly serve you, drop a like, subscribe, even comment what you want to see next, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.